Nice to see you all again. Before we proceed with the agenda item, I'd like to inform you that we have just held the third meeting of the Bureau. During this meeting, the Bureau reviewed the progress of work of the committee, and I recalled that we had only started the examination of the State of Conservation report on Liverpool before stopping our discussion due to time constraints. I had closed the meeting asking committee members to consult with each other so as to move forward today with the consensus text. In addition, as you can see on our schedule for today, once we have concluded the examination of the report on Liverpool, we will only have two other properties to examine: Salonga National Park in DRC and the Selous Game Reserve in the United Republic of Tanzania. In this regard, in case we finish the examination of these two items earlier than 3:30 p.m. Paris time, we will proceed with the examination of item 7B reports, initially foreseen for 21st July, and for which amendments have already been submitted and shared. This means that we will examine item 7B.1 on the Royal Palace of Abney, Benin, and 7B.118 on the Rock Hill churches of La Libera, Ethiopia, if today's time allows. The Secretariat will publish a revised calendar for the examination of State of Conservation reports accordingly and upload it on its website. If you don't have any objection, we will proceed this way. Furthermore, I'd like to stress once more the importance to respect the time allocated for the intervention, and that those be focused and concise. I count on your support in this regard. In addition, and in line with Rule 22.6, during the examination of State of Conservation reports, in case a committee member requests that the floor be given to an observer state party concerned, I would ask the committee member to formulate a clear question you want to put forward to the state party, and we will ensure that they strictly respond to it and respect their speaking time. Last, for practical and technical reasons, I want to inform you that the established working group on the budget, chaired by Ms. Zoya, be slightly postponed and meets from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. Paris time, instead of from 4 to 5 p.m. as from 21st till 23rd July. If there's no objection, we'll then proceed this way. Thank you. Dear colleagues, as you know, we have started yesterday the examination. Excuse me. Started yesterday the examination of the State of Conservation report on Liverpool, during which we have heard extensive and in-depth discussion, and a number of committee members have expressed divergent views. We also heard from the Observer State Party of the United Kingdom, of Great Britain and Northern Ireland at the invitation of a committee member. However, due to time constraints, I had to close the meeting and asked the committee members to consult with each other so as to move forward today with the consensus text. I'd like to know whether there have been any progress in consensus, or if there are any comments. Hungary, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hungary would like to thank all states parties taking a position on this item yesterday. It seems that the committee is divided in this matter. This adds to the reasons why Hungary reiterates its suggestion in line with Rule 31 of the Rules of Procedures to adjourn the debate of this item to the next ordinary session in 2022. Thank you.
Any other comment? Mali, please, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs des délégations, puisque nous prenons la parole pour la première fois, la délégation permanente du Mali auprès de l'UNESCO voudrait féliciter le gouvernement de la République populaire de Chine pour l'accueil de cette 44e session du Comité du patrimoine mondial et pour la pleine réussite de la cérémonie d'ouverture. Je voudrais également vous féliciter personnellement, Monsieur le Président, pour la conduite remarquable de nos sessions. Pour le Mali, le retrait d'un bien culturel de la liste du patrimoine mondial est une décision grave, extrêmement importante pour le comité. Nous pensons que de telles décisions pourraient se faire après une mission de suivi sur le terrain, l'État partie étant disponible pour de telles missions. Je pense qu'il serait judicieux de reporter ce projet. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. China, please, you have the floor. Your microphone.
Chair,
yeah.
Has the floor? Has China the floor?
Yes, you have the floor.
Okay. Good morning, dear colleagues. We have worked so hard yesterday, and we look forward to a very fruitful discussion today. I was quite surprised by what our Hungarian colleagues said. And for next session, this session is a statutory session. This session is not an extraordinary session. We want to make it clear. I said it once, I said it again. This session is a statutory 44th extended session of the World Heritage Committee. This is not an extraordinary session. So if we have to take a decision, we have to take a decision. We cannot shy away from our responsibilities. We work under very difficult time. We have waited for 2 years for this session. We have already had 2 extraordinary sessions already. So I would like to plead to all colleagues to shoulder our responsibility, to show the integrity of this committee. We cannot shy away from our responsibility. The world is looking at us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Nigeria, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Appreciate and thank you very much for lovely chairing of the sessions. I want to align with Hungary that at the moment we have a division. There are those who are against and there are those who are for. So I think in order to save time, I support that we postpone this to the next extended session, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. At Open here, please.
Thank you very much and good morning to all. We believe that, as the ambassador of China said, and rightfully, this is a statutory meeting and that we have a responsibility to take a decision. For us, the decision should be that we cannot delist this very important heritage site until we have a reactive mission on the ground. And based on that, we also ask the state party to provide us a report. And on that basis, when we have a complete full picture, we can move ahead with whatever decisions we make. Delisting is a very serious and unprecedented move. When we take such moves, it has to be surrounded with all the precautions and all the necessary procedures that have to be fulfilled. We are not saying it should be postponed, at least as far as we're concerned. What we are saying is there should be a reactive mission, the state party should submit a report, and on that basis, we can, in the next session, take an informed decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Bahrain, please. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We fully support the decision expressed by China as to regards to the need to take a decisive decision on this matter and other subjects upcoming in the agenda. We've heard carefully some of the concerns of the members of the committee that were calling for a postponement of the debates. Our position is the requests that were set forth to the state party were done since 2012, since the danger listing. These are not recent requests. The state party had many years to comply to those requests, particularly the drafting of the State of Conservation report. This implies that the state party should have submitted local plans, revised supplementary planning documents, and the majority of neighborhood master plans, and the tall building skyline policy. Unfortunately, none of these have been agreed with ECOMOS over the past couple of years. We do not know exactly what is further required from the state party, since all of the recommendations that request have been repeated year after year since the danger listing. If they could clearly clarify what is needed, that would be useful. And I see that the ECOMOS have usefully placed two images on the screen today that show, which I believe is the waterfront during the year of inscription and a recent image. And I think the images speak to themselves as to the transformation of the waterfront of that property. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Norway, please.
Thank you, Chair, for giving Norway the floor again. Allow us first to echo the colleagues from China and Bahrain. The state party had the possibility to develop Liverpool without compromising the outstanding universal value. The state party has made many choices in this case, which were not in compliance with previous committee decisions and expert advice and guidance. Dominating and high-rise buildings are there already, as we can see on the screen. Plans are not being altered or reversed. Individual permissions are continuously given. Norway takes on its full responsibility as a committee member, and we cannot leave this difficult matter to the next committee. Today, we feel grave concerns for the credibility and the very future of this convention. The world is watching us now. As members of the committee, we have taken on a great responsibility on behalf of the 173 states parties observing us in this very moment. It is our obligation to safeguard the integrity of this convention and to protect and conserve the properties on the list. It also means that it is our responsibility to make difficult decisions when outstanding universal value is threatened or lost. We have such obvious evidence in front of us, and Liverpool itself even recognizing the major adverse impacts. Yet, it chooses to go ahead with the development. If we fail to follow up our decision from Baku in 2019, we have to ask ourselves, what will happen to the credibility of the Convention and the World Heritage Committee? And in this specific case, what could possibly be achieved by giving this difficult decision to the ones coming after us? We heard the state party yesterday. No concessions were given. We have in two extraordinary sessions, last November and March, agreed on the modalities and the modus operandi for this ordinary session, as explained by our distinguished colleague from China. We are painfully aware that we are deviating from expert advice in an increasing number of decisions, and at least we would hope to avoid deviating also from our own decisions. The world is watching, and it leaves us in a very, very difficult position, and we see no other way out than asking for a vote by secret ballot. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Bosnia-Herzegovina, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Notre position reste inchangée, à savoir ne pas retirer de la liste Liverpool. C'est vrai que ça dure depuis quelque temps. C'est vrai qu'il y avait des séances extraordinaires. C'est vrai que le monde nous regarde, mais nous ne devons pas encourager ceux qui oublient les principes qui sont fondamentaux et que nous sommes censés défendre. C'est notre position. Je vous remercie.
Guatemala, please, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Tomamos la palabra nuevamente en este tema con mucha preocupación, pero al mismo tiempo con mucha responsabilidad. Creemos que, al igual que otros estados partes ya lo han expresado, esta es una reunión especial, es una reunión diferente, es una reunión sin precedentes, pero es una reunión ordinaria al final del día. Entonces, como miembros del comité tenemos la responsabilidad de tomar decisiones en concordancia con las directrices y con la forma de trabajar de este comité. Estamos a las puertas del 50 aniversario de la convención y por lo tanto debemos fortalecer este compromiso y la responsabilidad que tenemos como miembros del comité y como miembros de la convención. Creemos que las evidencias son palpables, entendemos que el daño al BUE es irreversible, podemos ver las edificaciones que han alterado y han transformado las características del sitio y quisiera entonces consultar ahí como si puede aclarar la opinión sobre si el daño es reversible o es irreversible en el sitio, para empezar, y en segunda instancia apoyar la propuesta de Noruega para que como comité podamos avanzar en esta discusión y pasemos el punto a través de una votación secreta. Muchas gracias.
Thank you for your comment. Dear colleagues, a request for a secret ballot has been moved by the delegation of Norway. As you all know, according to Rule 41 on the conduct of secret ballot, a decision shall be voted on by secret ballot whenever two or more states parties shall so request. I would like, therefore, to ask whether any member of the committee wish to speak to support this request of a vote by secret ballot. I know just now Guatemala second this proposal, this move. Yeah. So, any other comment? Spain. Okay, Spain, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Nosotros suscitamos ayer una duda que no tenemos resuelta. Primero, no estamos en contra de que haya una votación. Si hay una votación, nos parece que es adecuado y no tendríamos inconveniente. Pero la duda que nos surge es qué vamos a votar, a favor o en contra del informe, porque no conocemos que haya ninguna enmienda, al menos el secretariado no nos la ha remitido. Entonces, ante un debate tan importante, no tenemos una alternativa, al menos oficialmente, a la propuesta de informe. Por tanto, la votación sería a favor o en contra del informe. No sabemos si eso es una modalidad muy, digamos, adecuada, porque no tenemos la posibilidad de votar una enmienda que sea distinta al informe porque no se ha recibido. Me corregiré si me dicen que es que hemos tenido problemas y que se ha mandado a todo el mundo menos a España. Pero no conocemos que el secretariado haya enviado una enmienda que esta delegación pueda haber valorado como alternativa al informe que estamos ahora analizando. Por tanto, la votación será a favor o en contra de este informe, porque no puede ser a favor de otra alternativa que hasta el momento no conocemos.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Uganda, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I am taking the floor to support the proposal by Norway to vote by secret ballot on this matter. I thank you.
Now I give the floor to Norway to clarify on what the vote will on.
Thank you, Chair, for giving Norway the floor again. I think we would like to ask the advice of the Secretariat in regards to the questions asked by the distinguished colleague from Spain, and also to ask for clarification from the legal advisor on this matter. To our knowledge, there have been no amendments proposed to this case, but we have to verify that question. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, did you hear us?
Yes, yes. Since the request for a vote by secret ballot has been seconded, we will therefore proceed to the vote. The question will be drafted by the Secretariat. Just give me a few seconds just to clarify this one. So I give the floor to Dr. Rosala.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. This is in line with Rule 41 for the secret ballot. You heard that 3 states parties requested voting by a secret ballot. I can explain the procedure, but first it's the question from Norway on the drafting of the question itself. I presume it would be, are you in favor of the draft decision 44com 7a.34? Because the point is that we have not received any amendments, but this needs to be also clarified with the legal advisor, and I'm sure that my colleagues are already in contact with the legal advisor. In the meantime, you would like to explain, should I explain the process then, or would you like to go to, I think you cannot go to the other interventions when we are in a voting procedure.
No. Norway, this, I wanted to know whether this is correctly understood.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What was just explained by the director of the World Heritage Center is corresponding to our understanding of the situation, yes, but we would also like to wait for the clarification from the legal advisor. Thank you. And obviously also a confirmation from the rapporteur that no amendments have indeed been submitted. We have not received any amendments. Thank you.
Ms. Rapporteur, you have the floor. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have received no amendments for this decision, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, just wait for a moment. The legal advisor is working now.
Mr. Chair, good morning or afternoon to you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, I do not believe there is a particular legal question that is asked at this stage, but I can clarify the situation in the same terms as was clarified by Madame Rossler as the secretary of the committee. The committee is currently discussing a draft decision, which is 44com 7a.34, and it needs to make a decision in this regard. No amendments have been proposed, and therefore my understanding is that the proposed voting would be on the draft decision that is currently before the committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and I remain available to reply to any other questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will give the floor to Dr. Rossler.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you also to our legal advisor for the explanation. So let me just explain now the process. I would like to recall Rule 39 regarding counting of votes, which states that state members present and voting shall mean states members casting an affirmative or negative vote. Therefore, states parties abstaining from voting shall be regarded as not voting. Furthermore, Mr. Chair, allow me to underline that according to Rule 37 of the Rules of Procedures, decisions of the Committee on matters covered by the provisions of the Convention shall be taken by a majority of 2/3 of its members present and voting. I wish also to recall the voting arrangements, which have been approved by correspondence by the committee on 21st May 2021, as per decision 15 AXT Com3 for the conduct of the secret ballot. And this secret ballot was, secret voting was requested by 3 states members of this committee. Now, once a secret ballot has been requested, and in order not to disrupt the plenary meetings and the continuation of the examination of the subsequent agenda items, the ballot will be held in the morning of the day following. Now, tomorrow we have no session, so that will be then, if I'm not mistaken, let me just check my agenda, on the 21st then, no? Okay, they will put the calendar on the chat. Members of the committee will have to ensure that one of their representatives in Paris is available to come to UNESCO headquarters to vote according to a schedule drawn up by the Secretariat following the English alphabetical order of the member states of the committee. And you see this now on the screen. Room 5, which is the room in front of room 1, will be provided by the Secretariat with a ballot box and a polling booth. Each member of the committee will be given an envelope and a ballot paper on arrival in the voting room. 2 tellers from among the delegations of the committee members who can be physically present need to be appointed by the chairperson with the assistance of the Secretariat. The 2 tellers, together with members of the Secretariat, shall be present during the voting and counting of the ballots. The conduct of the vote will be in accordance with Rule 42 of the Rules of Procedure. Dear Mr. Chairperson, I would like to add that I think that Mrs. Tumeka Netloko from South Africa and Mr. Czalbolj Nemes from Hungary have kindly volunteered to serve as tellers during the 44th session if the World Heritage Committee has no objection. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Before vote begins, I must appoint 2 tellers from among the members of the committee to scrutinize the votes cast according to Rule 42.1. As just we heard from Ms. Rosler, Ms. Tomika Ntuluku, South Africa, and Mr. Czalbolj Nemes from Hungary have kindly volunteered to serve as tellers. I therefore appoint them as tellers. As there's no session tomorrow, the voting process will therefore start on the morning of 21st July at 9 a.m. sharp Paris time at UNESCO headquarters, and the result will be announced at the start of the plenary meeting on 21st July. I now adjourn the debate on this item until 21st July.
Mr. President, point of order, please.
Yes.
Mr. President, I will need some explanation on this voting procedure. Exactly, we are going to vote draft resolution 78.34. Is that correct? Which means, in my view, it's yes vote means what exactly? That we can adopt point 11 of this resolution, or no votes. How does it proceed? How the counting goes? To eliminate this side from the list, the yes vote, which means those that support the resolution must have 2/3 of the votes, or on the contrary? Please explain us that to us, if you are so kind.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Dr. Rosler, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Yes, to answer to the distinguished ambassador of Brazil, this was my understanding, but a yes would mean an agreement with the draft decision as it is in the document. As you had heard from the rapporteur, we have not received any amendments. So if the committee agrees to the draft decision, it would mean a delisting, but I'm looking at our dear legal advisor if that is a correct understanding. Thank you.
The legal advisor, please.
Mr. Chair, I confirm what was said by the Secretary of the Committee. You have before you draft decision 44,74.34 in paragraph 11. It decides to delete the site from the World Heritage List. This would be the matter in front of you. A yes decision, in my understanding, would be to adopt the draft decision. A no vote would be not to adopt that draft decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Brazil, is it okay for you?
Yes, therefore, I understood correctly. To delist this site, it will be needed 2/3 majority of yes votes. Is that correct? Is my understanding correct? Is a yes or no question?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So now I adjourn the debate on this item until 21st July, and we can move to our next item. I now invite Ms. Rossler to read the list of the properties of Latin America and the Caribbean region for which the reports are proposed for adoption without discussion. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we missed out one property from Europe. It's number 32 Historic Center of Vienna, Austria, which was not open for discussion. So that we need to gavel down.
Okay.
Thank you. Then I will read, as you requested, Mr. Chair, the list of properties from Latin America and the Caribbean. We have the city of Potosi, Bolivia, plurinational state of, fortifications on the Caribbean side of Panama, Portobello, San Lorenzo in Panama, Chan Chan archaeological zone in Peru, Coro and its port, Venezuela, Bolivarian Republic of. That's it for Latin America and the Caribbean. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. If there's no objection from the committee on the state of conservation report, I declare the decision read out adopted. I would like to ask whether any observer delegation would like to express themselves about one of the properties for which we have adopted the decision without discussion. I see now. Let's proceed then.
From Panama, yes.
For Panama? Oh, okay. Sorry. Panama. Now you have 2 minutes intervention.
Gracias, señor presidente, por darme la palabra. Felicito y agradezco a la República Popular China por acoger y organizar de manera excelente la 44ª sesión extendida del Comité de Patrimonio Mundial. E igualmente extiendo felicitaciones al Centro de Patrimonio Mundial por sus labores en este sentido. Panamá reitera su firme compromiso hacia el debido cumplimiento de las medidas correctivas para alcanzar el estado deseado de conservación para la remoción de la lista de Patrimonio Mundial en peligro de las fortificaciones de la costa caribeña de Panamá, Portobelo y San Lorenzo. En este sentido, señor presidente, el plan de gestión para incluir todos los componentes y zonas de amortiguamiento de la propiedad se halla en etapa de preparación de los documentos para su licitación pública internacional. Como parte de la ejecución del préstamo del Banco Interamericano de Desarrollo. En cuanto al proyecto del Centro de Visitantes de San Lorenzo, este fue adjudicado mediante licitación pública en 2019 y se halla en etapa de ejecución por parte del Ministerio de Ambiente, en coherencia con los lineamientos del Plan de Uso Público del Parque Nacional, Bosque Protector y Paisaje Protegido de San Lorenzo, aprobado en 2017, que respeta el valor universal excepcional del uso que expresa el componente Castillo de San Lorenzo, que se encuentra dentro de este Parque Nacional a una distancia aproximada de 7 kilómetros. Aunque los efectos de la pandemia de la COVID-19 y las cuarentenas, parte de las medidas sanitarias, han afectado la ejecución de estos proyectos, Panamá reitera y subraya su firme compromiso para el cumplimiento de las medidas correctivas para alcanzar el estado deseado de conservación para la remoción de la lista del Patrimonio Mundial en peligro. Gracias.
Thank you. I see no more. So let's proceed then. We're now moving to the examination of natural properties. I now would like to give the floor to the delegation of Mali to present to the committee the reason it requested to open the state of conservation of the Salonga National Park, Democratic Republic of Congo. Excellency, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Mesdames et Messieurs les chefs de délégation, la délégation du Mali voudrait remercier Monsieur le Président de la mise en débat dans le cadre des travaux de la présente session du projet de décision 44,7A.44 relatif à l'état de conservation du parc national de la Salonga, bien inscrit sur la liste du patrimoine mondial en 1984 et sur la liste du patrimoine mondial en péril depuis 1999, plus de 20 ans, conformément à la requête qu'elle a introduite à cet effet au nom de l'État partie de la RDC, qui ne siège pas actuellement au comité du patrimoine mondial. Pour rappel, ce projet de décision proposait 3 éléments à mettre en œuvre par l'État partie pour permettre le retrait du bien de la liste du patrimoine mondial en péril. Concernant la première condition relative à l'atteinte de tous les indicateurs de l'état de conservation souhaités en vue du retrait du bien de la liste du patrimoine mondial en péril, le rapport de la mission conjointe de suivi réactif UNESCO-IUCN de 2020 soulignait déjà les importants progrès réalisés par l'État partie et ses partenaires en vue de l'atteinte de tous les indicateurs de l'état de conservation souhaités en vue du retrait du bien de la liste du patrimoine mondial. Le projet de décision corrobore ce constat en proposant de ne plus appliquer le mécanisme de suivi renforcé pour ce bien en raison des progrès réalisés dans la mise en œuvre des mesures correctives et de l'amélioration de la situation sécuritaire. Concernant les 2 autres conditions pour le retrait du bien de la liste en péril, notamment le 1, l'annulation des blocs pétroliers qui chevauchaient le bien, et 2, la finalisation de l'accord de cogestion du bien. L'État partie de la RDC a jusqu'ici privilégié un dialogue régulier, ouvert et constant avec le Centre du patrimoine mondial et l'IUCN. Dans ce cadre, notamment, l'État partie de la RDC a transmis le 2 juillet 2021 le procès verbal des négociations en cours avec le Fonds mondial pour la nature pour la finalisation de l'accord de cogestion du bien ainsi que d'importantes clarifications sur la caducité des blocs pétroliers qui chevauchaient le bien et son engagement à continuer à préserver la valeur universelle exceptionnelle du bien. D'une manière concrète, ces documents apportent des éléments probants solides et irréfutables sur l'atteinte des conditions requises pour le retrait de ces biens de la liste du patrimoine mondial en péril lors de la 44e session élargie du Comité du patrimoine mondial. En somme, ce sont ces évolutions positives qui n'ont pas pu être prises en compte lors de l'élaboration du projet de décision à raison des contraintes du délai que l'État partie de la RDC souhaite voir refléter en suggérant quelques amendements au projet de la décision, ces amendements concernant 11 points sur 14 proposés dans le projet actuel. Je voudrais à ce stade vous prier, Monsieur le Président, de bien vouloir donner la parole à l'État partie de la RDC, après les membres du comité, pour nous donner quelques précisions sur la caducité des blocs pétroliers et l'accord de cogestion pour la gestion durable du bien en vue du retrait du bien de la liste en péril. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. Thank you. Now Uganda, please. Uganda.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. Allow me, Chair, to first thank you for ably steering this meeting, despite the hurdles in internet connectivity. Chair, my delegation joins the State Party of Mali in voicing its concerns over the harsh advice IUCN has submitted to this committee in respect to maintaining Salonga National Park on the list of World Heritage Properties in danger. IUCN clearly indicated in its evaluation report that the status of management of the park has improved, with the park patrols enhanced from 37.9% in 2018 to 59.5% in 2019. The wildlife census reports indicate a positive trend with the levels of decreasing poaching, and site evaluation puts the site management at 64.5% in 2019 from 40.9% in 2016. Furthermore, Chair, IUCN evaluation report indicated that all areas that led to placement of the property on the list of sites in danger have been addressed. Such milestones, Chair, cannot be undermined. On the other hand, Chair, it is important to note that many properties worldwide are now grappling with sustainable funding due to outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic, which has impacted tourism revenues. The issue of sustainable funding, therefore, cannot be emphasized here at this moment, for so many sites, Chair, have been affected likewise. Lastly, but not least, Chair, it is important to note that the World Heritage Center is under immense pressure to support most of the properties on the list of sites in danger. Removal of properties from the danger list where tremendous progress has been witnessed should be embraced by this honorable committee. Relinquishing monitoring and management responsibilities by the advisory board and the World Heritage Center will not only save resources which will be directed to other sites that are in their need, but also give comfort and responsibility to state parties to jealously support such properties in order to allow them to not slide back to the list of properties in danger. It is therefore my delegation's preferred view that now is the time for this committee to remove Salonga National Park off the list of properties in danger for the state party to take full management responsibility. My delegation, therefore, Chair, would like to associate itself with the state parties of Mali and Democratic Republic of Congo by supporting the draft amendment 44.7a. 44. I submit, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Now, at the request of Mali and with the permission of the committee, I give the floor to Democratic Republic of Congo to answer the question.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. c'est la République démocratique du Congo. Nous tenons d'abord à vous féliciter et à vous remercier, Monsieur le Président, pour votre élection et pour la manière dont vous conduisez notre 44e session, cette réunion, et féliciter la Chine pour cette organisation. Monsieur le Président de la République démocratique du Congo, qui a connu son site sur la liste en péril pendant très longtemps, tient réellement à confirmer que tous les indicateurs sur l'état de conservation souhaité du bien ont été atteints et la mission conjointe du suivi réactif l'a constaté lors de sa visite au parc de Salonga. S'agissant de l'accord de cogestion sur la gestion des Salonga entre l'Institut congolais pour la conservation de la nature et le WWF, donc nous pouvons dire que cet accord est très avancé. Le procès verbal de négociation a été signé entre les deux parties et il a été transmis au centre. Et dans les jours qui suivent, interviendra la signature de ce protocole d'accord entre la RDC, l'IUCN et le WWF. Quant à l'exploitation pétrolière, nous voulons confirmer, Monsieur le Président, moi, cher membre du Comité du patrimoine mondial, que les éléments de clarification que nous avions donnés sur le parc de Salonga sont suffisamment éloquents à ce sujet-là. Les droits pétroliers sur ce bloc sont tombés caducs. En plus, l'ordonnance irrélative qui avait été signée n'était pas assortie de permis ni d'exploration ni d'exploitation. Donc, il n'y a aucun permis qui a été délivré à cette fin et aucun appel d'offres n'a été lancé dans la cuvette centrale qui couvre le parc national de Salonga. Donc, aujourd'hui, la RDC est en négociation à l'amiable avec cette partie pour avoir renoncé à cet accord, pour avoir renoncé à ce contrat-là. Nous tenons vraiment à vous souhaiter, à vous remercier pour toutes les 3 conditions qui étaient supposées et qui sont terminées. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to invite Mr. Guy Debonnet, Chief of the Natural Heritage Unit of the World Heritage Center and IUCN, to provide their comments. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, we can confirm that the State Party submitted additional information on the 2nd of July, after the State of Conservation report was already published. The information included a letter by the Director General of the National Petroleum Company, Sonahydroc, confirming that there were currently no oil exploration or exploitation activities within the blocks overlapping with the property, and that no further auctioning of these blocks is currently foreseen. A follow-up meeting was organized with UNESCO, IUCN and the State Party on the 9th of July, in which the Director Generals of the Protected Area Agency, ICCN, and Sonahydroc participated, together with the Deputy Cabinet Director of the Minister for Environment. In this meeting, the World Heritage Center requested further clarifications on the status of the oil concessions, which had been already attributed by presidential decree and are overlapping with the property. I want to recall that in several decisions, the World Heritage Committee had urged the State Party to cancel these concessions. In the meeting, the DG of Sonahydroc clarified that the concessions have not yet been cancelled and that this would require a new presidential decree. However, he noted that the company which was awarded the concession is in a legal dispute with the government on this concession, rendering the concessions null and void. In addition, he clarified that the company has never been granted the exploration permit necessary to start exploration activities. This statement was confirmed in writing in the minutes of the meeting submitted by the State Party on the 12th of July. We also want to recall that the Joint World Heritage Center and IUCN Reactive Monitoring Mission, which visited the property in January-February 2020, was also able to note the important progress made in achieving the indicators of the desired state of conservation for the removal of the property from the list of World Heritage in danger. So in conclusion, at this stage, the concessions have not been cancelled yet, but the state party has confirmed that the contract is no longer valid as a result of the legal dispute. If the committee considers this assurance from the state party sufficient, it could decide to remove the property from the list of World Heritage in danger at this session. Mr. Chair, IUCN would also provide some further clarifications.
Okay, IUCN, please.
Thank you, Chair. IUCN would like to acknowledge also the additional information that was submitted by the state party regarding the status of oil concessions overlapping the property, as well as the positive confirmation that a new co-management agreement is in the final stages of approval between IUCN and WWF. And the World Heritage Centre has just outlined that information in detail, and the state party itself has confirmed that information in its intervention. Regarding the oil concessions, the state party has assured that no active concessions overlap with the property, and there's no intention to allow exploration or exploitation within the property. And IUCN therefore considers there is currently no threat to the property in this regard. It is important that the state party ensure that no exploration or exploitation occurs in future by implementing the committee's requests for these concessions to be permanently cancelled. As was noted by the distinguished delegate from Uganda, the 2020 reactive monitoring mission indeed concluded that notable progress had been made to achieve the desired state of conservation for the removal of the property from the list of World Heritage in danger. IUCN considers this progress to be very positive, and although some indicators remain to be fully achieved, strongly encourages the state party to continue its efforts to improve the conservation of the property and address all the points in the draft decision. Should the committee decide to consider removal of the property from the list of World Heritage in danger at this session, it will be essential that the state party complete all of these measures and ensure that there is no reason for the property to be considered as in danger in the future. And Mr. Chair, in that regard, I think the way that Uganda spoke to that issue was entirely correct. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the presentation. I'd like to know whether there are any other comments. Ethiopia, please. You have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Nous sommes très heureux d'intervenir sur ce sujet qui, pour une fois, en tout cas en ce qui concerne notre continent, est un événement positif, et nous voulons remercier la République démocratique du Congo d'être vraiment le porte-drapeau des événements positifs qui se produisent sur notre continent. Et comme ça a été dit par mon collègue, même plusieurs collègues, ainsi confirmé par les experts, les progrès nécessaires ont été réalisés pour le retrait de ce patrimoine important de la liste patrimoine en péril. Les réponses adéquates ont été apportées concernant les concessions pétrolières qui chevauchent le bien et qui sont des caducs, donc nuls. Les progrès importants qui étaient aussi réalisés dans la mise en œuvre des mesures correctives et de l'amélioration de la situation sanitaire. La finalisation de l'accord de cogestion qui est en cours, ainsi que les progrès dans la démarcation des limites non naturelles du parc. Donc pour toutes ces raisons, concrètes et évidentes, il est important que ce patrimoine important soit retiré de la liste des patrimoines, en péril. Et à cet égard, nous féliciter pour tous les travaux qui ont été faits, pour l'engagement et la coopération qui ont été réalisés avec les experts, que nous voulons également remercier dans ce cas très important pour notre continent, et nous voulons donc appeler aussi au retrait de la liste en péril des choses. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Egypt, you have the floor. Egypt, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
We have discussed the status of the Salonga National Park carefully, and we would like at the outset to congratulate the authorities of the Democratic Republic of Congo for the outstanding efforts deployed in preserving the park and dealing with the threats it was facing, which led to its inscription on the World Heritage List of Endangered in 1999. We would like to welcome the renewed commitment of the Democratic Republic of the Congo not to authorize or undertake activities likely to compromise the outstanding universal value of Salonga National Park or any other property inscribed on the World Heritage List without first informing the World Heritage Committee. The improvements witnessed in the site since 1999 were recognized by the different experts visiting the site, including the latest reactive monitoring mission organized in January and February 2020. These efforts shall be recognized by the committee in its current session in adopting the current decision. We welcome the advisory body's recommendation to no longer continue to apply the reinforced monitoring mechanism for the property, and believe, as Mary has just suggested, that the right decision to adopt today is the removal of the Salonga National Park from the endangered list. I would kindly ask you, Mr. Chair, to add Egypt to the list of co-sponsors of the amendments presented by Mali for this side. I thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Now, China, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. China thanks the World Heritage Center and IUCN for their mission report and their very clear interventions a few minutes ago. China commends the State Party as a developing country for making continuous and significant efforts in the implementation of the corrective measures, ensuring regular ecological monitoring of species which are characteristic of the outstanding universal value of the property, and the strengthening collaboration between all those involved in the management of the property and the viable populations of the different flagship species are maintained. China takes note the joint World Heritage IUCN reactive monitoring mission has witnessed the important progress made in achieving the indicators of the desired state of conservation for the removal of the property from the list of the World Heritage in danger. Although the oil concessions awarded by the presidential ordinance and straightening the properties is seen as a potential threat to the OUV, the reactive monitoring mission notes that no oil explorations or exploitations were undertaken that could affect the OUV of the property or its integrity. China also understands from the State Party and the author of the amendment that the rights to the oil blocks have already expired. And the State Party's government has given assurance that the oil blocks will not in any way put to tender, which should satisfy the committee, the potential threat to the property have not realistic implication. China therefore supports the removal of the property from the list of the World Heritage in danger. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Thailand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Thai delegation is fully in agreement with the sentiments expressed by all the previous delegations. The DRC has indeed made concrete and significant progress in addressing all the issues of concern. We commend the progress made and also the commitment of the DRC not to undertake any activities that would undermine the OUV of the property, including the question of oil exploration. Therefore, Thailand supports the amendment to the draft decision to remove Salonga National Park from the list of World Heritage in danger. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your comment. Now, South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman, for giving us the floor. South Africa notes that Salonga National Park from the Democratic Republic of Congo has been on the list of World Heritage in danger since 1999, which is more than 20 years since the significant threats were identified. We therefore believe that the threats are no longer having significant impact on the OUV. We further note and appreciate that a joint World Heritage Center IUCN reactive monitoring was conducted from 20 January to 4 February 2020, and the state party subsequently submitted additional information that was required. We welcome the positive comments made earlier today, made by both the World Heritage Center as well as the IUCN. Chairperson, the World Heritage Center IUCN report further indicates an overall improvement on the summary score of the integrated management effectiveness tool for the property, which has increased from 40.9% in 2016 to 64.5% in 2019. This on its own shows improvement in the efficiency of the management of the property. Mr. Chairman, it is also encouraged to note that the Joint World Heritage Center IUCN reactive monitoring mission has confirmed that there is no oil exploration or exploitation taking place inside the property. Mr. Chairperson, the report also acknowledges the significant efforts made by the state party and its partners in the implementation of corrective measures. This is especially with regard to improving security of the property, rendering the anti-poaching strategy more effective, ensuring regular ecological monitoring of species characteristic of the outstanding universal value of the property, and strengthening collaboration between all those involved in the management of the property. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, we believe that the state party has met the requirements for the removal of Salonga National Park from the list of World Heritage in danger as outlined in the operational guidelines. The removal of the property from the danger list will also encourage the state party to address the other issues that have been mentioned in the same effort they have been addressing the issues, and even more. Keeping the site on the list of World Heritage in danger will not achieve this at all. I thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Spain, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Queríamos sumarnos ya a la opinión que está siendo constante de otras delegaciones, miembros de ese comité, a la vista de los informes del Centro y de UNI que bien reconocen que se han hecho unos avances por los cuales felicitamos a la República del Congo. Todos somos conscientes de lo dificultoso que es en muchas ocasiones mantener un bien en determinados lugares y con determinadas circunstancias, pero el hecho de que elementos tan importantes y perjudiciales como las prospecciones petroleras se han detenido y que se vea una voluntad manifiesta y que animamos a que la República del Congo la siga teniendo de mantener el bien recuperando los posibles deterioros que haya podido haber, nos anima a sumarnos a esta propuesta de que abandone la lista en peligro. Unas veces es importante estar en la lista en peligro porque eso llama la atención no solo del Estado, sino de la comunidad internacional para prestar ayudas para que ese bien se recupere, y otras veces cuando determinado porcentaje de equilibrio y de restauración o de freno al deterioro se ha conseguido, lo mejor es que vuelva a salir de la lista habida cuenta de los logros alcanzados y de la voluntad manifiesta del Estado en que ese bien se siga preservando. Por tanto, súmese nuestra voluntad de apoyo a esta propuesta de salida de la lista y recíbase nuestra felicitación por la tarea realizada tanto por el Centro como por el propio Estado.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Bosnia-Herzegovina, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous sommes très contents et très heureux d'apprendre des bonnes nouvelles concernant la protection des sites qui sont sur la liste dont on parle. Il est particulièrement important que cette fois-ci, la bonne nouvelle vienne d'un pays d'Afrique qui va, j'espère, bientôt enrichir notre liste avec d'autres sites dignes de protection et de notre attention. Je me rejoins à tous mes collègues dans le même esprit de soutenir cette initiative, ce que notre collègue du Mali a dit et les autres, et ça me rend très heureux personnellement, et la Bosnie-Herzégovine soutient le retrait de Salonga de la liste des sites en danger. Je vous remercie.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Saudi Arabia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Saudi Arabia would like to commend the Democratic Republic of Congo, advisory bodies, and the Secretariat for the fruitful collaboration in the implementation of the corrective measures to safeguard the outstanding universal value of Salonga National Park. We encourage the state party to continue on this great momentum, and therefore we support the removal of Salonga National Park from the endangered list as per the amendment represented by our dear colleague from Mali and has been seconded by our dear committee members here. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Brazil, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. Brazil wants to join all my colleagues that have made this statement in favor of this resolution and the amendments of this resolution. We have seen and we have heard the information given by IUCN and that has recognized the great efforts made by the Democratic Republic of Congo and the progress, have verified the progress made during all these years. And of course, which is most important in this case, the assurances given by the member states on the oil production that should be sufficient for all of us to receive this good news that comes from the African continent, that we have finally take out of the list of in danger one of these important elements, this Salonga Park. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Guatemala, please, you have the floor.
Buenos días a todos. Gracias, presidente, por darnos la palabra. Guatemala es respetuoso de la opinión de los cuerpos consultivos, en este caso de IUCN. Habíamos entendido que se le había solicitado más información al Estado parte para presentarla en el 2022, pero ya que IUCN en esta ocasión aclaró y nos dio más información, ahora Guatemala puede apoyar la decisión de sacar a este sitio de la lista en peligro, y a la vez felicitamos todos los esfuerzos realizados por el Estado parte y por los expertos en este caso. Muchas gracias.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Oman, please, you have the floor. Oman, please, you have the floor. The mic, maybe the problem with the mic.
Yes, thank you. Now it is on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oman took note for the positive discussion regarding this site from different committee member states. And we would like to support the draft decision for delisting or taking out the site from the list in danger. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Russia, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our delegation would like to share the satisfaction which was unanimously demonstrated by the committee members on the fact of fruitful cooperation between the state party and the advisory bodies and the World Heritage Center on this particular case. This is a good example of cooperation. We hope that there will be more examples like this, and it gives us a possibility to unanimously adopt the decision about taking out the property from the list of sites in danger. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Norway, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Norway would also like to join our colleagues in congratulating the State Party of the Democratic Republic of Congo with the notable progress regarding the conservation of this tremendously important World Heritage property. Based on the additional information provided by the State Party, Norway supports the amendment proposed to remove Salonga National Park from the list of World Heritage in danger. We commend the State Party's commitment not to undertake activities related to oil exploration in the World Heritage property. We would at the same time like to encourage the State Party to continue to investigate and address allegations of human rights violations as specified in paragraph 7 and make sure that Indigenous peoples and local communities' rights and needs are secured. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Nigeria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And since this is the first time I'm taking the floor, let me commend your unique leadership. I want to join other voices to commend the technical cooperation of the Secretariat, the IUCN, and the effort of the home country on the Salonga National Park and the African group in general for getting this park back online and for getting it out of the list of endangered sites. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Australia, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Australia is delighted to support the amendment proposed by Mali and congratulates the Democratic Republic of Congo on the progress it's made on meeting the conditions to remove the Salonga property from the list of World Heritage in danger. Australia supports the comments made by Norway regarding the rights of local peoples and the importance of protecting them. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Hungary, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hungary welcomes the measures taken by the Democratic Republic of Congo for the conservation of the Salonga National Park and congratulates on the progress made in the implementation of the corrective measures and the improvement of the security situation. We encourage the State Party to continue the work and the significant effort with regard to improving the security of the property and strengthening the fight against poaching. Therefore, Hungary welcomes the steps being made for the renewal of the co-management agreement between IUCN and WWF and the clarification provided by the State Party on the oil exploration or exploitation within the property. Finally, Hungary welcomes the decision to no longer continue to apply the reinforced monitoring mechanism for the property and support the draft decision with the amendment submitted by Mali and the removal of the property from the list of World Heritage in danger. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Dear colleagues, I see no more questions in the comments. So now I invite you to adopt the draft decision 44,7A.44 concerning this property. But before doing so, I'd like to ask the rapporteur if she has received any amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Distinguished delegation of Mali submitted an amendment to the decision 44,7A.44. The proposed changes are shown and integrated in the original text of the draft decision already. Shall we go through it?
Yes.
So there are no amendments in the first three paragraphs of the draft decision. In paragraph 4, it reads, takes note of the clarification provided by the State Party that although oil concessions awarded by presidential ordinance and straddling the property have not yet been cancelled, the rights to the oil blocks have now lapsed as well as the assurance given that these blocks will be excluded from any tender. Paragraph 5 reads, it continues and reiterates its request to permanently cancel these oil concessions while not authorizing new concessions within the property and its periphery, which could have negative and irreversible impacts on its outstanding universal value, OUV. New paragraph 5 reads, this is actually the original paragraph 13 in the draft decision. It's moved to paragraph 5, decides to no longer apply the reinforced monitoring mechanism for the property due to the progress made in the implementation of the corrective measures and the improvement of the security situation. New paragraph 6, noting the clarification provided by the state party on oil exploration or exploitation within the property, the significant progress towards the formalization of the co-management agreement between the Congolese Institute for Nature Conservation, in brackets ICCN, and the Worldwide Fund for Nature, in brackets WWF, and the significant progress towards the achievement of all DCOCR indicators, also decides to remove Salonga National Park, in brackets Democratic Republic of Congo, from the list of World Heritage in danger. New paragraph 7, minor modification, strike through deep, and the rest of the draft decision remains the same. And the following modifications is strike through to previous paragraph 7. We continue with paragraph 8, further requests the state party to implement the recommendations of the 2020 mission as follows. We have a modification in 8A, pursue current efforts and strengthen the human, technical and financial capacities dedicated to the fight against poaching, both in terms of staff and their training, with a view to reaching a surveillance rate of 80% of the property. We have no modifications up until G. Extend the sampling base for the annual monitoring of species in the corridor, separating the two blocks, which constitutes a favorable habitat for most of them, in particular the flagship species, the Congolese elephant, bonobo, and peacock, in order to document the follow-up of the reconstitution of fauna. And the addition in here, L, finalize the co-management agreement between ICCN and WWF for the sustainable management of the property. Our next amendment is in paragraph 9b, undertake participatory finalization of the demarcation of the non-natural boundaries of the park, of which 120 kilometers have already been demarcated. And then we continue with paragraph 10. Thanks all the donors who continue to support the conservation of the property, in particular the governments of Germany and Norway and the European Union. Remaining paragraph remains the same. Paragraph 11 also takes note of the limited funding aimed at ensuring in a sustainable manner the implementation of all the management functions of the property, and further requests that the state party, with the support of its partners, to continue its efforts with a view to develop a sustainable financing system with a view to the improvement of the efficiency in the management of the property. Paragraph 12 reads, finally requests the state party to submit to the World Heritage Center by 1 February 2022 an updated report on the implementation of the progress made aiming for definitive cancellation of oil concessions, straddling the property and the formalization of the co-management agreement between ICCN and WWF for examination by the World Heritage Committee at its 45th session in 2022. Mr. Chair, we have a small modification required in here, if I may suggest, because this is the text traditionally asking for an update report. So we already listed the measures that are requested from the state party in paragraph 8, namely letter A to L. So I propose to keep off the above, respect to the original formalization of the text, and if these two particular items are to be highlighted, then we say including progress made aiming. If this is including the progress made, if this is acceptable to the committee members. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, any objections? I see none. So I now declare the draft decision 44-78.44 adopted as amended. So on behalf of the entire committee, I would like to warmly congratulate the state party for this major achievement after having been inscribed on the list of World Heritage in Danger in 1999, 20 years ago. The state party has set a good example in making persistent efforts to protect the OUV of World Heritage properties. Congratulations. Now, DRC, you have 2 minutes of statement.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Au nom du gouvernement de la République démocratique du Congo et au mien propre, nous avons le grand honneur de vous saluer, Monsieur le Président, et vous témoigner notre reconnaissance et nos remerciements de tout cœur pour avoir encouragé notre pays en général et tout le personnel de la conservation de la nature en particulier par cette bonne décision que vous venez de prendre pour sortir le parc national de la Salonga de la liste en péril. Votre décision, Monsieur le Président, honorable membre du Comité de patrimoine mondial, motive à suffisance notre pays pour fournir davantage d'efforts en vue de respecter et de mettre en œuvre les recommandations et les orientations du comité, du secrétariat et des organes consultatifs afin de préserver les valeurs exceptionnelles universelles des autres 4 biens qui restent sur la liste en péril. La République démocratique du Congo vous promet de rester en contact permanent et harmonieux avec le secrétariat des organes consultatifs pour un travail fructueux sur les autres biens de la liste en péril et en même temps propose, si possible, l'inscription de nouveaux biens tant naturels que culturels. Enfin, Monsieur le Président, notre pays, la République démocratique du Congo, son président, Excellence Monsieur Félix Antoine Tshisekedi Tshilombo, son gouvernement et tout son personnel de la conservation de la nature vous sont très reconnaissants et vous réitèrent leurs remerciements autant qu'au Fonds du patrimoine mondial africain qui nous a accompagnés tout au long de la préparation de ce dossier jusqu'à la décision du retrait du parc national de Salonga de la liste en péril. Que notre Dieu vous bénisse, Monsieur le Président, et bénisse la République de la Chine pour avoir organisé cette 44e session. Nous vous remercions. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you. Now, I give the floor to Mali for a short intervention.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le Mali remercie les membres du comité pour leur soutien, le secrétariat général de l'UNESCO, les organes consultatifs, l'UICN et les experts pour les efforts abattus et les appuis qui ont permis de retirer aujourd'hui le parc de la Salonga de la liste du patrimoine mondial en péril. Enfin, le Mali félicite chaleureusement la RDC pour ses efforts consentis avec toutes les garanties suffisantes et constitue désormais un nouveau départ. Merci. Félicitations.
Thank you for your comment. Now, I'd like to ask whether any observer delegation would like to express themselves about this property. I see International Indigenous Peoples Forum. You have the floor for 2 minutes intervention.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I read this statement on behalf of the Network of Indigenous and Local Communities for the Sustainable Management of Forest Ecosystems of Central Africa, known as REPELIAC. They are committed to good governance and the sustainable management of Central African forest, where their traditional lands are in the Salonga National Park in the Democratic Republic of Congo. REPELIAC is currently engaged in the implementation of a project titled PACL. This is an initiative which is underway in Congo, Brazzaville, Central African Republic, Cameroon, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. It highlights the urgent need to promote the traditional knowledge and practices of the Indigenous pygmies in the conservation and management of World Heritage Sites. This project is being supported by WWF and has the support of Central African states. The DRC's Salonga National Park is one of the largest national parks in the world, with an area of 3,334,600 hectares. The third of the southern sector of the park is home to Indigenous pygmy peoples, whose traditional knowledge and practices contribute to the protection and preservation of biodiversity, consisting of important species in forest areas which remain relatively intact. Indigenous pygmies' management of the ecosystems of their environment in World Heritage Sites also plays a fundamental role in climate regulation and carbon sequestration. REPELIAC proposes the following recommendations to the Committee, UNESCO and IUCN. 1, recognise that the rights of the access by Indigenous peoples to traditional lands, territories and resources contributes effectively to nature conservation, the preservation of biodiversity, as well as the reduction of poverty in rural areas. 2, stop promoting the voluntary relocation of Indigenous peoples from their ancestral lands within the Salonga National Park and stop identifying Indigenous hunting, gathering and collecting as a threat to the park. 3, ensure the effective participation of Indigenous peoples in the management of World Heritage Sites, including Salonga National Park. And 4, recognise the rights of the Indigenous peoples to determine their own development priorities in World Heritage Sites. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Now I give the floor to African World Heritage Fund for 2 minutes intervention.
Thank you very much, Chair. As this is the first time I'm taking the floor, I would like to congratulate you, Chair, for the excellent conducting and the management of this meeting, and also thank the government of China for hosting the event. The African World Heritage Fund would like to congratulate the Democratic Republic of Congo for the efforts that were made toward meeting the required condition for the removal of Salonga National Park from the World Heritage List in danger after 22 years. The African World Heritage Fund considers this decision as a collective win by the World Heritage Committee, but also as a collective win by the whole World Heritage community. The African World Heritage Fund would like to remind, and its partners remains committed to support efforts for improved implementation of the World Heritage Convention in Africa. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Dear colleagues, I suggest that we take a technical break. I will resume the meeting in 10 minutes at 1:17 Paris time. See you in a minute. Dear colleagues, let's proceed then. I now invite Mr. Guy de Bonnet, Chief of the Natural Heritage Unit of the World Heritage Center and IUCN, to present the reports on the state of conservation of the natural properties located in the Africa region and opened for discussion. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The report opened for discussion is Selous Game Reserve in the United Republic of Tanzania. It is important to recall that the committee, since 2009, in numerous decisions, expressed its utmost concern regarding the likely irreversible damage of the Julius Nyerere hydropower development on the outstanding universal value of this property, and urged the state party to halt this development. The dam development is also in direct conflict with the committee's established position that the construction of dams with large reservoirs within the boundaries of properties is incompatible with their World Heritage status. Following the announcement by the state party that it would go ahead with the dam development, the committee at its session in 2018 added the dam development to the justification for the danger list and reiterated its request to the state party to invite a reactive monitoring mission to the property. Although requested 3 years ago, the state party has not yet invited this mission, in spite of several reminders from the World Heritage Center. However, in public statements, the government has confirmed that the dam is now more than 50% completed and will be fully completed in 2022. The project involves the construction of a 130-meter high dam on the Rufiji River, the central river in the property, a reservoir that is 12.5 kilometers wide and 100 kilometers long, inundating an area of 125,000 hectares, 4 saddle dams of a total length of 18.2 kilometers, a power plant, transmission lines, worker camps, access roads, and transmission infrastructure, all situated inside the property. Promotional videos by the Tanzania State Electricity Company confirm the advancement of the works and the scale of the environmental damage which already took place. Recent satellite images, as well as the images that you see now on the screen, show the construction area before the works on the left and the area today, and document the massive alterations in the natural vegetation and landscape that have already taken place. We also want to recall that the committee, in its decision 43-7A16 at the last session, has already stated that the deforestation and other cumulative damage would likely lead to the irreversible damage of the OUV and create the conditions for deletion of the property from the World Heritage List. The World Heritage Center and IUCN consider that today the damage as a result of the dam project has irreversibly impacted the outstanding universal value of this property, and therefore have to recommend that the committee delete Selous Game Reserve from the World Heritage List. Mr. Chair, IUCN will provide some further clarifications on the impacts on the OUV of the property. Thank you.
Okay, IUCN, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Rufiji River that flows through the property and plays a fundamental role in its ecology and in sustaining its OUV. For criterion 9, the outstanding universal value for which the property has been recognized includes the large undisturbed wilderness area, seasonal dynamic transformations of sand rivers, and seasonal flooding of the river. So the construction of a large hydropower dam on this river inside the property will unquestionably lead to a permanent loss of these characteristics. The river has already been diverted according to the videos referred to by the World Heritage Center that have come from the state's electricity company. And together with the video and satellite imagery, evidence of the scale of forest loss and landscape degradation within the property, it is evident that the values for which the property was inscribed under criterion 9 have already been irreversibly damaged and the integrity of the property has been lost. The exceptional biodiversity values, which justified criterion 10, continue to be severely threatened. Recalling these declines were the reason for the site to originally be added to the list of World Heritage in danger, and they're anticipated to be further impacted as a result of the hydropower project. As noted by the World Heritage Centre, the project clearly runs contrary to the committee's established positions on dams with large reservoirs within World Heritage properties, and the construction has continued despite the committee's past urgent requests to not proceed, to halt activities, and to undertake a mission. And thus the opportunity to avoid this loss of outstanding universal value has not been realised. And as the World Heritage Centre also noted, the committee at 43Com considered that these damages would be likely to lead to the deletion, the condition of the deletion of the property being the situation. And so, Mr. Chair, with great regret, given this evident permanent loss of the outstanding universal value for which the property was listed, it is unavoidable that the Selous Game Reserve should be recommended now for deletion from the World Heritage List. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for this presentation. I'd like to know whether there are any comments. Norway, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving Norway the floor. This decision is about the construction of a dam within the boundaries of one of our 252 most precious natural properties. It's about how the committee deals with well-documented hydroelectric projects that impacts the integrity and the attributes in a natural heritage property. It is a test of the credibility of the committee. Almost 40 years ago, IUCN evaluated this property and the committee inscribed it on the World Heritage List. Since then, we have gained a lot of experience and knowledge about the consequences of dams and ecosystems and of dams on ecosystems and species. This has led to the committee decision from 2016 stating that construction of dams with large reservoirs within the boundaries of World Heritage properties is incompatible with World Heritage status. After studying the documentation, Norway has concluded to avoid undermining the principles making this convention the most prestigious guardian of heritage, there is no other option than deleting Selous Game Reserve from the World Heritage List. A dam of this size cannot be present within a World Heritage property. One cannot mitigate the consequences that this project has on the outstanding universal values of Selous. Nor is it a case for boundary modification. Boundary modifications should enhance the protection of outstanding universal value, not the opposite. Sadly, this is a case where the conditions of paragraph 192 are met. Norway supports the draft decision. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Nigeria, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I listened to the submission made by all those who have spoken before me, and I want to table an amendment in view of the issues raised in the draft decision. Paragraph 3 of the draft decision also recalling that the state parties have no obligation under the convention to protect and conserve the world cultural and natural heritage situated on their territory, notably to ensure that effective and active measures are taken for the protection and conservation of such heritage. Paragraph 5 of the draft decision recalling furthermore that the property was inscribed on the list of World Heritage in danger due to the dramatic decline in elephant population due to poaching and the tendering of large-scale logging right within the property for Julius Nyerere hydropower project, formerly the refugee hydropower project. Mr. Chair, a case has been made in the IUCN analysis that poaching remains a critical problem within the Selous, so much that the elephant population has remained stagnant since the site was put on danger list in 2014. However, data provided in the same analysis show that the elephant population has gone up from 13,091 in 2013 to 15,500 in 2018, representing a fair increase of 18.4%. Indeed, the state party's State of Conservation report also shows that between the year 2018 and 2020, there has been no single elephant carcass encounter attributed to poaching within Selous. This presents a clear testimony of the state party in undertaking strong conserving measures within Selous. Regrettably, however, such information is not reflected in the draft decision. We argue that such a strong spirit and practice by state parties in conserving what heritage sites should always be fully recognized rather than being downplayed. IUCN analysis also raised the issue of large-scale logging within Selous. The fact, however, is that clearance will involve only 91,400 hectares, or roughly 1.8% of the entire 5,200,000 hectares reserve area. How much such a minor fraction of forest clearance has already irreversibly affected the OUVs of the properties needs a strong verification. Are we sincerely saying, for instance, that the remaining 98.2% of 5,108,600 hectares of the inter-Selous wilderness has no heritage values? Accordingly, the Nigerian delegation has submitted amendment to the draft decision in view of these reflections. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Uganda, please. Uganda, please. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me back on the floor. Chair, the delegation of the Republic of Uganda carefully studied the analysis and drafted decision 44.7A.51 in respect to deletion of Selous Game Reserve from the World Heritage List. Unfortunately, Chair, my delegation has taken note of a number of several procedural flaws and lack of requisite data that are likely to mislead this committee in its discussion of this property. Chair, my delegation is reliably informed that the state party of Tanzania was not formally consulted prior to the submission of this draft decision. This contravenes paragraph 174 and 194 of the operation guideline. Moreover, paragraph 191A, 176D, and 196 give clear guidance to be undertaken before a decision on a matter of such a nature is concluded by this committee. On the other hand, Chair, as raised by my colleague from Nigeria, whereas Selous Game Reserve covers 5.2 million hectares, here we are looking at only 1.8% of it being developed for hydropower production. The form in which the draft decision was presented by IUCN has the implication that all the property attributes under criteria 9 and 10 have greatly been impacted, and the entire property has completely lost its credibility, thus justifying its deletion from the World Heritage list. My delegation is extremely concerned that IUCN's adoption remains speculative without consideration of the remaining 98.2% of the critical habitat holding massive biodiversity of rare, endangered, and threatened species. My delegation therefore supposes that this honorable committee would be misguided into making an uninformed decision without adequate information. In this regard, the consideration of dialogues between advisory bodies and the state party would be the best way to go to attain a win-win position in line with paragraph 176E of the operational guidelines. Chair, with the above in mind, my delegation therefore does not fully support the draft decision and has submitted several amendments to the effect. At a later stage, possibly, Chair, you will allow Tanzania to make more clarification and give a little bit of more information. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Australia, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Selous is one of the largest protected areas in Africa. Australia considers the situation regarding this property to be very different from that of Liverpool. When the property was listed in 1982, the scale of the impacts from the construction of a dam in Stigler's Gorge were clearly unforeseen, even though construction of a dam was foreshadowed. The draft decision clearly states that the World Heritage Centre and IUCN consider that important biodiversity remains in the wider ecosystem, including the Selous-Niassa ecosystem. They have suggested that it may be appropriate for the state party, in consultation with IUCN and the World Heritage Centre and possibly with other states parties, to consider the evaluation of these remaining areas with significant biodiversity with a view to developing a new World Heritage nomination. Our concern is that the remaining biodiversity values of the property will be seriously reduced in the time between the delisting of the property and the development of a new nomination under different criteria. We would like to reduce this risk of biodiversity loss by giving the state party time to explore with IUCN and the World Heritage Centre whether the biodiversity remaining in the wider Selous-Niassa ecosystem might be incorporated in a new World Heritage nomination before the current property is delisted. Thus, when the property is delisted, there would be a roadmap for the future. We therefore suggest it would be appropriate to retain the property on the endanger list to give the state party time to invite IUCN and the World Heritage Centre to send a mission to verify the status of the property on the ground and suggest options for conserving the wider Selous-Niassa ecosystem. Consequently, we've drafted paragraphs for addition to the amendment proposed by the Uganda, which we would like the committee to consider.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Ethiopia, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. We go along with what was said by previous delegations who have expressed the view that delisting or deleting the Selous Game Reserve from the World Heritage List would be a serious and grave mistake. It is a grave mistake at two levels. It is a grave mistake because it tells many of us that development and heritage protection cannot go hand in hand. Specifically in a case where most, that was highlighted by many delegations, over 98% of the site remains as is. You cannot, in a vast area such as this one, and a country, not to undertake any development without ensuring the livelihood of its population. That is just not feasible. What we are here to do is to ensure a harmonious relationship between development and preservation. And that is possible because the overwhelming majority of the area is still maintains its OUV. So we don't understand the rush to judge and condemn a country that is seeking to develop its economy, develop the livelihood of its people while preserving its important natural site. We are of the view that the procedure, as was highlighted by my colleagues from Uganda and Nigeria, was deeply flawed, that what is needed at this time is dialogue between experts and the member state party with a view to find a solution, because the OUV of this magnificent heritage site is still there, and that we can ensure that development and heritage protection can go hand in hand. So with that in mind, we support the proposal or the amendments put forward by Uganda and Nigeria. I thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Now, China, you have the floor.
Oh. 中方呢，谢谢大会主席。
中方呢对过去2年来缔约国呢根据委员会要求开展的工作，包括起草和修订战略性环境评价报告呢表示赞赏，特别感谢缔约国针对偷猎开展的一系列重要的应对性的工作。我们高兴地了解到大象种群的数量正在增加。中方注意到 IUCN 认为遗产地标准9已经受到损害，标准10面临着一定的威胁。这也就是说，遗产地本身的突出普遍价值，特别是生物多样性价值依然存在。根据缔约国提供的报告，这个重要的遗产地的总面积达到了520万公顷，相当于瑞士的整个的国土面积。其中受到水坝建设影响的遗产地面积仅仅占到其中的1.8%。在这种情况下，尊敬的各位同事，假如委员会将这项面积广袤、保护物种繁多的遗产地除名，今后能够以什么样的方式继续促进其保护？失去了公约的保护以后，会不会出现其他开发的建设项目？与遗产地毗邻的莫桑比克尼亚萨禁猎区的生态系统会不会受到连带的影响？我们是应当继续推动保护，还是放弃保护这项遗产地？这是我们委员会必须慎重考虑的问题。主席先生，该遗产地是发展中国家在保护和发展之间寻求平衡的典型的案例。中方认为委员会应当从可持续的遗产保护目标出发，鼓励和帮助缔约国找到在保护和发展之间更加平衡的道路，而不是将项目除名。希望委员会充分考虑上述的这些因素。中方呢建议给缔约国更长的时间完成战略环境评价报告和反应性的监测，然后呢再做出更加成熟、更加合理的决定。谢谢。
Thank you for your comment. May I ask Australia to send the proposal text to the rapporteur as soon as possible? Next, Oman, please. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As other member of this committee, Oman notes and acknowledges the serious commitment of the state party to protect and conserve the AOV of the property that is now listed in the list of World Heritage Properties in Danger. The state party, we believe, has responded convincingly and clearly to each of the concerns raised and has met most of its requirements in collaboration with all WHC and consultative bodies. Oman notes the steps taken by the state party in terms of reducing the land size with hunting blocks, the avoidance of any logging, and has undertaken site clearing for the dam area and reservoir, the update of species list of flora and fauna, as well as the maintain of the size of the reservoir with strong conservation protocols. As a result of these steps, it has been noted that for the past 3 years, 2018-2020, no single elephant crash has been encountered within the reservoir. The state party has expressed its commitment to fulfill the obligation and continue its effort and fruitful dialogue with WHC and consultative bodies. Therefore, Oman therefore sees the deletion of the property of the Selous Game Reserve from the World Heritage List is deferred and supports its return in the list of the World Heritage Property in danger. This gives the state party the opportunity to continue its efforts to protect the OUV of the property. Oman encourages the state party to take into consideration all concerns raised by the World Heritage Center and consultative party. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Saudi Arabia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are gathered here today to make sure that we conserve, we promote, and we protect outstanding universal value. And there's no better example than Selous Game Reserve. The vast, magnificent area that this area covers, and the huge commitment that the Republic of Tanzania has shown with regard to preserving the outstanding universal value and the amazing biodiversity this game reserve has. Speaking of developmental needs, and I would like to echo what my colleagues have said before, when we look at development, this site has been inscribed more than around 40 years ago. A lot of development has happened globally, a lot of changes, population changes, different needs that emerge across the globe. And with that emerged the Sustainable Development Agenda, which clearly indicates the interdependence and the interrelationship between these goals, and that we cannot cherry pick from Sustainable Development Goals. Therefore, development has its own needs, yet it only covers less than 2% of the Selous Game Reserve. We are asked here to weigh the benefits and the cost, and therefore, given the outstanding universal value that the Selous Game Reserve still has and still owns, and the commitment of the United Republic of Tanzania, we suggest that the United Republic of Tanzania is given the chance to work with the World Heritage Center, with advisory bodies, to further enhance the protection of this amazing game reserve. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Now, South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the floor again. South Africa does not support the draft decision for the site to be delisted. As confirmed by the IUCN in its technical review of 1982, Selous Game Reserve is one of Africa's largest protected areas with a core of more than 5 million hectares and a buffer zone of more than 21,000 hectares. South Africa considers any decision to delist Selous as disproportionate given the sheer size of the property versus the total area being impacted, which on a scale basis can be considered negligible. Chairperson, whilst acknowledging that poaching of elephants for their tusk is an issue of concern in Africa, the latest census data of 2018, as presented by Tanzania, indicates that the elephant population in Selous Game Reserve has increased by a total of more than 18%, from about 13,000 individuals to 15,000 individuals. Noting this, we commend the efforts made by Tanzania to ensure that the elephant population in Selous Game Reserve recovers. Additionally, the decision to build what is now called the Julius Nyerere hydropower project was conceived and communicated to the World Heritage Committee at the time of its inscription in 1982. During that time, the IUCN evaluation team acknowledged that such a decision, I quote, will result into clearance of a small portion of vegetation and that will cause insignificant effects on the ecosystem, close quote. Chairperson, more recently, the state party has undertaken a socio-economic assessment and environmental impact assessment using IUCN procedures and guidelines as requested by the committee during the 40th session. The recommendations of these studies
Congo, please close your microphone. Congo, yeah, please close your microphone. Yeah, Congo, please close your microphone. The South Africa, please go ahead. South Africa now.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Draft decision 44.78.51 also makes reference to the tendering of large logging rights within the property for the Julius Nyerere hydropower project. This is factually incorrect, since according to the state party, they only undertook site clearing for the dam and reservoir, accounting for 1.8% of the total reserve area. Finally, the draft decision mentions that additional planned and existing projects such as mining, hydropower projects, oil and gas exploration, and roads are planned inside the property. It was once again important to note that the state party has indicated that prospecting licenses do not exist within the property, and the formally granted prospecting license within the property expired in 2017 and will not be renewed in accordance with Tanzania's legislation. Noting the clarity as presented by the state party, South Africa is of the view that the Selous Game Reserve should be retained in the list of World Heritage in danger instead. South Africa further encourages a dialogue and collaboration between the state party, IUCN, and the World Heritage Center in order to save this valuable and important property. In closing, Chairperson, South Africa is of the view that decisions of this committee should also take into consideration the efforts by developing nations to address the socio-economic challenges they are currently experiencing. And deleting this site from the World Heritage list will further decrease the number of African properties on the list, a point that we have consistently made and a concern we have expressed to this committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Brazil, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we have mentioned before in our general intervention on item 7 of the agenda, and also yesterday, while discussing the proposal to remove the city of Liverpool from the World Heritage List, decisions with far-reaching or irreversible consequences should be avoided during the exceptional circumstances the whole world is facing today, without creating any precedent for the future sessions of the committee. This applies to the present case, which also touches on another issue that was put forth by Ethiopia, China, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, and other countries, including Brazil, and is being debated by this committee. The need to strike a balance between heritage conservation and development needs. Development without protection is compromised, but there can be no adequate protection without development. In this specific case, the hydropower projects under construction will impact a small portion of the sites, but the larger parts will maintain its original richness in terms of biodiversity and its SOUV. This is a question that must be discussed in further depth, and we should not recommend the removal of this site from the list before additional debates by the committee, especially at the present time. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Egypt, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We support the amendments presented by Uganda on this draft decision. I would like to stress that we are opposed to the delisting of the site from the World Heritage List. As provided by the State Party SOC latest report, there is currently no single prospecting or mining license which has been granted within the reserve area. In addition, the rest of the proposed developments are all planned outside the boundaries of the Selous property and currently non-operational. We do not see how this committee can proceed to conclude on impacts of projects that have actually not commenced. Furthermore, the State Party of Tanzania has provided assurances that none of the above projects will go ahead without an environment and social impact assessment as required by Environmental Management Act of 2004 and in compliance with paragraph 118 of the operational guidelines. I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Hungary, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hungary doesn't agree with the content of the draft decision for several reasons. The analysis doesn't provide us complete and unbiased information on the site and the dam construction,
For instance, that the idea of the dam is older than the convention, almost twice over, or that it is a must to solve Tanzania energy crisis. The analysis fares the present and to demonstrate the scale and exact ratio of the area of the interventions compared to the total area of the property, only 1.8% is affected. The construction might be huge, yet is tiny compared to the whole site. Hungary also missed the participation of an on-ground African expert who could find insightful balance between the OUV and the rightful need for the development in Tanzania. Amongst these difficult and extraordinary circumstances due to COVID-19 pandemic, the committee should not make such irreversible decisions as deletion. To conclude, Hungary would retain Selous Game Reserve property on the list of World Heritage in danger and would ask the state party to invite a reactive monitoring mission along with African experts to find out a creative, suitable solution for both the conservation of the OUV and the rightful development of Tanzania. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Russia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our delegation is fully aware of the seriousness of challenges facing this outstanding property as it was described by the advisory body. However, we share the view of many delegations that it is early to adopt irreversible decisions. Existential contradiction between the interests of conservation and those of development appear all over the world, specifically in Africa. The adequate solutions are not easy to find, but should be by all means encouraged. Therefore, in our view, more consultations with the state party are needed. We would like to stress the importance of dispatching an expert mission by IUCN in collaboration with the World Heritage Center to the site. We believe that these steps are critical for a subsequent fair decision by the committee. That's why we would like to support the proposals made by Australia to give the time for the state party to elaborate appropriate measures in consultations with the advisory body and World Heritage Center. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Bosnia-Herzegovina, you have the floor.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous sommes de l'avis qu'il ne faut pas biffer ce site de la liste. La question qui se pose toujours quand il y a une situation pareille, que faire après le retrait d'un site de la liste? Ça peut uniquement empirer la situation sur le terrain. En même temps, nous félicitons les efforts de la Tanzanie en fonction de la protection du site et ça, qui est dans sa responsabilité. La troisième chose, c'est quand il s'agit du braconnage, mais ainsi aussi de ce qu'on appelle commerce illicite des animaux, ça reste un problème, pas seulement pour la Tanzanie, mais ça reste un problème qui est global et qui mérite notre attention. Dans ce sens, je veux féliciter tout d'abord ceux qui sont sur la première ligne de la défense de ces animaux, de ces biens, à savoir les gens qui risquent, qui au péril de leur vie se confrontent sur le terrain. Et je répète notre opinion, ne pas biffer sur cette site et supporter la décision qui est donnée, la proposition de l'Australie et des autres pays membres du comité d'encourager la Tanzanie, c'est les efforts ultérieurs dans le même sens. Je vous remercie.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Bahrain, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Given the committee's interest in retaining this important African natural reserve on the World Heritage List, does IUCN envision any possible solutions to further enhance attributes contributing to criteria 10, as the assessment highlighted that these attributes could still be saved? We reiterate the request to the state party to invite a reactive monitoring mission requested by the committee in decision 42-7A56 to agree upon the appropriate corrective measures that are feasible in preserving what remains of the original OUV. We further call upon the state party to ensure the recommendations of IUCN are taken into consideration and further encourage the dialogue between the two. Mr. Chair, could the floor be given to IUCN for further clarification? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Now I ask IUCN to have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the comments from all of the committee members. If I may respond to those, including the question from Bahrain. First of all, I think it's important to be clear on the point on the suggestion that this is only a small percentage of the property. Indeed, Selous is a very large property, and indeed it is a large and undisturbed wilderness area in the current state, or at least the state before the construction of the reservoir advanced. And that is one of the most important justifications for its inscription on the World Heritage List. But firstly, the dam footprint within this area will be exceptionally large. This is a 130-meter high dam that will create a reservoir of over 12 kilometers in width and over 100 kilometers in length, and 125,000 hectares inundated. But the footprint itself is connected to the need for a large amount of supporting infrastructure, roads and transmission lines. And so the reservoir itself is not the only impact. And we need to also recall that this is a location for the reservoir really in the center, in the heart of the reserve area as it is currently listed. And so these are amongst the first reasons why the undisturbed wilderness is going to be directly and permanently lost in the way it has been included on the World Heritage List. But it's also important to stress that the impact of the dam goes well beyond its physical footprint. With river diversion in place, the river system will be substantively altered, and this will also result in many downstream impacts, including parts of the ecosystem that have sustained world-famous aggregations of wildlife in the northern part of the property, and this is another irreversible change. And the dam will alter the seasonal variation in the river flow, water chemistry, turbidity, sediment loads, and a complex interaction with the riparian systems downstream as well. These are also different times than the 1980s when the site was listed. Firstly, I think it's important to note that these impacts are on top of what was the decline in wildlife that was the reason for the site being listed as in danger, with, for instance, a quarter of the buffalo numbers that were there at the time of inscription, perhaps 20% of the number of elephant and black rhino declining from 2000 to numbers of less than 20. We've also seen cumulative pressures on the site from a number of other developments, and I think need to recall really we have to deal with the situation as it presents us now, and also to recall that this is not the first time the committee has considered all of these matters, that we've had more than a decade of concerns being raised, and the committee has reviewed on many past occasions the situation that we find ourselves in now, and has given a series of clear requests which are unfortunately not those that we've seen implemented. In terms of dialogue, I think, yes, it's clearly important that we keep dialogue in any circumstance on the issues that are raised. Obviously, the largest opportunity for that over the last 3 years would have been the reactive monitoring mission that had been requested by the committee, but unfortunately has not been requested to take place, Mr. Chair. And I think in terms of the question from Bahrain, well, it's really difficult to see how the implementation of this property assists the recovery of wildlife populations. We have seen at least stabilization and possibly the signs of recovery in the elephant population, but as we know, a number of the impacts are not certain, and there are definitely concerns that the location of the dam directly results in impacts on wildlife. So not only is the impact on criterion 9, but also on superimposes on the major impacts that we've seen on the OUV under criterion 10, Mr. Chair. I believe I've covered the main points that were raised by committee members. If there are other questions, I'll be happy to address them. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I believe the World Heritage Centre also had some points that they may wish to reply to if you are so minded. Thank you.
Okay, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Perhaps to the question raised by Uganda on the procedure, I can inform you that there was a meeting with the State Party on the 18th of June. The director met with the permanent delegate of Tanzania at UNESCO to inform him about the proposed draft decision ahead of it being published. And I think if needed, perhaps the director could provide more information on this. I think it's important to note, as IUCN has said, that there was a great opportunity for dialogue to have the monitoring mission. This monitoring mission was requested by the World Heritage Committee since 2018, and there have been in many letters, the World Heritage Center reiterated and requested Tanzania to organize this monitoring mission, and Tanzania did not want to invite the monitoring mission to date. So that is, in 2018, when the monitoring mission was requested, this was a proposal. Today, it is a project that is, as you can see on the screen, that is almost being completed. I think this is important to note. I also wanted to mention the question of the strategic environmental assessment and the environmental impact assessment. Indeed, Tanzania did prepare these documents. They were prepared, however, after the works had already started and the project was already decided. And IUCN had an independent review of these documents, and this review concluded that they did not conform to international standards for such impact assessments, and also did not conform to the IUCN guidelines on impact assessments for World Heritage sites. I think it's important to see that these environmental impact assessment, and especially strategic environmental assessments, are really instruments to inform decision making. The problem here is that the decision was made when these documents were prepared. So the State Party has indeed informed us that they want to revise the impact assessment to address the comments that the questions on the fact that it is not in line with standards and IUCN guidelines. However, one can question if that is still a useful thing to do, given the fact that not only the decision has been made, but that the construction is almost completed. I wanted to just also perhaps add to the point of the, some delegates mentioned the issue with the elephant population, the biodiversity. I want to recall that at the time of inscription, the elephant population in this site was estimated at 100,000 animals, and that when the site was inscribed on the World Heritage in Danger, this number had dropped below 15,000. In 2018, a survey was done to look at if the population was recovering. This survey was not submitted to the World Heritage Center, but is publicly available, so we did look at it with IUCN. And it is indeed, the estimation now is around 15,000. However, if you look at the statistical analysis, the increase that is in the numbers is actually less than the error margin of the survey methodology. That means that in reality, we can also only conclude that the numbers have not, have remained stable. The 13,000 and 15,000 are the same if you look at the statistical error and error margin. So, and normally an elephant population, when there is no more poaching, the population does recover, does start recovering quite quickly. So this is an indication that poaching might still be an issue. Although we note, of course, the statement by Tanzania that there has been no elephant carcasses found in the last 2 years. But of course, this is also a complicated property to find these elephant carcasses. We also want to mention here the situation of the black rhino. It's another flagship species of this site. And to date, it's not even sure if there is no data, if there is no published data if black rhino is remaining in the property. There has been efforts to locate remaining populations of black rhino, and unfortunately, most of these populations seem to be in the area that will be, where there has been potential evidence that there might be some rhino left. They seem to be in the area that will be inundated by the dam project. I think these are the main points I wanted to cover. Perhaps just on the point of the question of development and conservation, and the need to balance. Of course, this is an important topic in the convention, as we all know. At the same time, I think it is important that development should not go ahead in a way that it impacts the outstanding universal value. If not, we cannot have a balance if the outstanding universal value is lost. And we believe that this project will irreversibly affect the outstanding universal value of the property. I think in this respect, again, it would have been important to do this strategic environmental assessment ahead of a decision and to really look at options of having the needed development in a way that would preserve the OUV, which is unfortunately in our and IUCN's assessment not the case with the current development project. Thank you.
Thank you. Ethiopia, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. We are really saddened hearing what we just heard regarding this very fundamental issue. I think hearing what we heard, it's not the sites that are in danger, but the whole committee itself and the whole World Heritage System that is in danger. Because choosing between preservation heritage and feeding our population, we will always choose to feed our population. And unless this extremist view of you do this or else we will punish you changes, then we are heading towards disaster. And I say this by weighing my words, because the way we've been doing things thus far can no longer be accepted by many of us in Africa. You cannot ask us to remain poor, underdeveloped, and take punitive measures when development projects are implemented. That is just not any more acceptable. So the smart thing and the intelligent thing to do would be to try to find a balance. And here the balance is heavily unfair or skewed in a property that still maintains. I haven't heard anything that says that OUV is compromised. It may, road construction might come, electricity might come, therefore. So we are really baffled as to why we are going about it this way, but that's a choice, I think, a reflection of how things have been done over the last 50 years, and it's up to us to change it as members from developing countries. At any rate, I want to ask you, Chair, with your indulgence, if the floor can be given to the accused, if you may, the government and the people of Tanzania, because we haven't heard from them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Now, Uganda, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, for allowing me back. And basically, I want to respond to the comments given by IUCN and the World Heritage Center. Chair, even when we are considering a situation like this, a matter of this, we need to look at other areas. We cannot look at it in isolation without looking at other policies, policies of sustainable utilization, the policy of sustainable development, and we are also looking at climate change. We are actually grappling with climate change. The moment we delist such a big area, an area almost as big as my country, I think we will be making a big mistake. Chair, on the other side of the river system, an area that was raised by IUCN, I think IUCN needs to know that under criteria 9, we still have other rivers that are flowing through Selous and are providing the same criteria. And we have the ecological systems being delivered. We cannot afford to say because one river is affected, then all the rivers are affected. No, I think that would be wrong. On the other hand, Chair, if we sincerely only utilize the operational guidelines in one area and do not look at other areas, then we get into a problem. Supposing if we look at other sectors, sections of the operational guidelines, for example, can't we evoke the element of operational guideline paragraph 191A and look at, is there any other intervention other than delisting? Shouldn't we be very sensitive to such a big area being delisted? And I listened to my brother Guy, World Heritage Center. He's very skeptical about the numbers. And these are the things we're saying. Can't you then dialogue with the state party and know whether we can actually establish whether we still have biodiversity in the area, other than making a decision without data? I think that would be misinforming this committee. Chair, I still feel that we go ahead with the amended draft decision. I submit, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Mali, please, you have the floor. Microphone problem? Microphone, yeah.
Excusez-moi, Monsieur le Président. Monsieur le Président, à ce stade, nous exhortons le Comité du patrimoine mondial à travailler en étroite collaboration avec l'État partie et à étendre sa pleine coopération et son soutien afin de trouver une approche commune en vue de relever les défis de l'équilibre entre la conservation des sites du patrimoine mondial et le développement durable. Cela fonctionnera non seulement pour l'État partie de Tanzanie, mais aussi pour la plupart des pays en développement pour mettre en œuvre des projets visant à stimuler la croissance économique et le développement conformément à l'agenda 2030 collectif des Nations Unies pour le développement durable. Nous rejoignons alors d'autres délégations pour dire que cela serait une erreur de retirer à ce stade le site de Selous de la liste du patrimoine mondial. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you for your comment. Now, Guatemala, please, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente, por cederme nuevamente la palabra. Por supuesto que Guatemala reconoce la urgente necesidad de proteger una mayor cantidad de espacios naturales a través de diferentes mecanismos, como la creación de áreas protegidas, el uso sostenible de los recursos naturales, así como la restauración de las áreas ambientalmente degradadas. Todo esto con el fin de mejorar la conservación de la biodiversidad, la conectividad ecológica, los servicios ambientales y la reducción de los efectos del cambio climático. En este orden de ideas, mi país desea resaltar que los sitios que son privilegiados con estar en la lista selecta de la convención y que son protegidos a través de esta convención, además de contar con elementos biológicos sobresalientes, también deben cumplir con todos los compromisos adquiridos, entre ellos la conservación de la integridad, es decir, el mantenimiento de ambientes no alterados. Guatemala lamenta profundamente la presente situación, pero ratifica su confianza en las evaluaciones realizadas y apoya la recomendación del cuerpo consultivo, al menos que se dé algo intermedio, como por ejemplo eliminar al sitio y que luego se replantee su ingreso nuevamente, pero en principio apoyamos la recomendación de IUCN. Gracias.
Thank you for your comment. Before I give the floor to China, I wanted to say to Uganda and Nigeria, to Nigeria and Ethiopia, to formulate a clear question, because you ask for the floor given to Tanzania. So please formulate a clear question. Now, China, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My delegation follows very carefully the debates in the committee. I would like to raise a question to IUCN. As we know, we are in the process to implement, to achieve all the 17 SDG goals. We are in the decade to achieve the SDG goals. I would like to provide to the committee a statistic, a set of statistic. In 2018, in African countries, per capita energy consumption is only 20% of the world average. Over 600 million people, which is about 50% of the people in Africa, do not get access to electricity. For countries to reach the SDG goals, for countries to improve the living standard of their people, for countries to seek sustainable development, we really need to strike a balance between sustainable development and World Heritage conservation. I would like to know from IUCN experts, are there any better ways to provide electricity supplies in Africa than water electricity generators? Are there any better ways to strike a balance between development and conservation? I would really like to seek your advice. We have to strike a balance in the overall picture. Otherwise, we cannot really fulfill our responsibility to protect the integrity of the World Heritage Convention. I thank you very much.
Thank you for your comment. Ethiopia, Nigeria, have you formulated the question?
Yes, Chair. Maybe, or Uganda can speak, maybe.
Oh, you can, okay. Yeah, Uganda, please. Yeah.
Chair, thank you very much. I think I needed to pick you very well on the question, whether we are going to say we go with the draft decision or we vote against the draft decision and go with the amendments. Is that what you meant? And the Chair, is it possible that we could also allow Tanzania to come on floor and explain if there are any gray areas that are not yet clear on floor? Chair,
this is not the question for the state party to answer. It's only for the state party for clarification, to clarify something. We can give the floor to the state party. Ethiopia, maybe you.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. My preliminary first two questions would be to the delegation of Tanzania and their experts. One, I know that due to the pandemic, a field mission could not be undertaken, and I understand that the country was hit very, very, very hard, on one of the hardest hits on the continent. But will they be willing to accommodate a field evaluation mission by the experts? That's the first question in 2021. Second is how do they plan to, maybe succinctly to tell us, how do they plan to maintain the OUV over the 98% of that beautiful heritage site in Selous? Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Now I give the floor to Tanzania for a brief answering the question.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. Let me first thank everybody for participating in this active discussion. And we are very much pleased to see that most members of the Commission understand our situation and they are sympathizing with what is going on, especially the decision that is being proposed by IUCN and the World Heritage Site. I wish to reiterate that Tanzania is ready to cooperate with the reactive mission to collect facts on the ground so that all misinformations that have been reflected by IUCN and the World Heritage Center are normalized. We see a lot of flaws, both in terms of procedures and in terms of the context of the substance of the matter. So yes, I would say that we are ready to collaborate. We understand that the situation is currently challenging, but we will liaise and see how best we can accommodate them at the right time. In terms of managing biodiversity in the remaining 88% of Selous, I want to assure you that we are now finalizing a general management plan for the area, and all these issues that have been raised by some members have been taken on board. So there should be no worry at all that we are ignoring the area simply because there is a big project going on. Now, having responded to those two questions, let me also reaffirm that the subject of the construction of Julius Nyerere hydropower dam within Selous Game Reserve World Heritage Site has already attracted several decisions by the World Heritage Committee since 2017. So this issue is not new, but rather I think sometimes we are going back unnecessarily, opening up discussions which have already been closed. Taken together, the previous discussions have got a kind of a positive spirit by the World Heritage community towards sustaining the environmental safeguards for this beautiful site. Tanzania would like to reaffirm its full collaboration and support towards this direction. And I want to assure you that Tanzania is among the very few countries that have dedicated more than 1/3 of its entire country for biodiversity conservation. So there is no way we can jeopardize the survival of Selous by not taking the necessary measures to take all precautions in order to ensure that the project is implemented in a sustainable manner. We have considered with keen interest the draft decision 44, Com7A, Com71, on Selous Game Reserve World Heritage Site. And we would like to register our sincere reservations on its contents. The decision states that this property has already irreversibly lost its outstanding unique values and integrity.
I remind you that just answer the questions.
I think I've already answered the questions, but we are ready to collaborate.
Yeah, yes, that's okay, yeah.
Okay, now.
Yeah.
And that we are taking all necessary precautions to ensure that biodiversity is well managed in the remaining part of Selous.
Okay, thank you. Now I give the floor to Nigeria. You have the floor.
I'm sorry, it's a mistake. That's a mistake.
We'll take you in again. Like you rightly asked, what is the question? The question is one, to suspend deleting of the site, and two, like Tanzania just submitted, they said they will be open to work with return to site for update on the situation of ground. I think this is just the two positions that we're pushing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think they have already answered the questions. So now I give the floor to Norway.
Thank you, Chair. Changes proposed by Uganda to the draft decision amendment we have been able to read. And now during the discussion, I have seen several other amendments coming up on my computer. We need time to take into account all these amendments and questions. Is it, so Norway would like to ask the chair to form a drafting group, and we would also ask the IUCN to participate in the proposed drafting group. Could that be possible? Thank you, Chair.
Nigeria, now you have the floor. Nigeria, now you have the floor.
That raised hand, that hand is a mistake. It's a mistake. I'm trying to bring the hand down. Thank you.
Now I give the floor to IUCN.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to respond to the question, I think, to IUCN from China, and thank the delegate of China for that question. I think it's just important to emphasize that IUCN is an organization that works all the time on questions of sustainable development. Our role that you see here focused on World Heritage is focused on a clear role to give advice to the World Heritage Committee on impacts of development on World Heritage sites in this case. But we're engaged in vast amounts of our work and our field projects and our work through our offices across the world in programs that are exactly about dealing with questions of sustainable development. The question that I think China asked is answered by, in fact, the point that was referred to by the World Heritage Center on the strategic environmental assessment. And the hope through that process was precisely to address the question of looking at alternatives within the wider landscapes that could provide an answer to the energy development needs, but without creating the levels of impact on the Selous Game Reserve that we believe this program and this project is creating. And the evaluation of the SEA concluded that there were many unanswered questions in the work that had been done. But as the colleague from the World Heritage Center noted, the SEA itself needed to be done before decisions were taken to move ahead with the project for that problem-solving approach to provide an answer. So in this instance, Mr. Chair, we're focused particularly on the question of this project and its impact on outstanding universal value and whether there is a compatibility or an incompatibility. And our conclusion is that there is an incompatibility with the project and the outstanding universal value of the Selous Game Reserve, and that is the basis of the position in our advice to the World Heritage Committee. I just maybe conclude with the very specific point that we're not giving this advice based on the last 2 years, but on the basis of the committee's own decisions and the committee's own requests over more than a decade of considering these issues. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment. I see no more comments. So I now invite you to adopt the draft decision 44-7A.51 concerning this property. But before doing so, I'd like to ask the rapporteur if she has received any amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have received 2 amendments from Uganda and Australia, but before going into details, distinguished delegates of Norway asked to create a drafting group, so perhaps you would like to reply to that. Thank you.
Yeah. I think all of us have noticed that as most of the committee members prefer to going through the draft decision, we will proceed then.
Well noted. As mentioned, we officially received amendments from the distinguished delegation of Uganda and Australia to the decision 44-7A.51 concerning Selous Game Reserve, United Republic of Tanzania. The proposed changes are integrated into the original draft decision as shown on the screen. We have no amendments proposed in the first 3 paragraphs, so perhaps we can continue looking at the paragraph 4. Paragraph 4 reads, further recalling the committee's clear position adopted in its decision 40-7 that the construction of dams with large reservoirs within the boundaries of World Heritage properties is incompatible with their World Heritage status and urges, we remove and in here just linguistically, urges state parties to ensure that the impacts from dams that could affect properties located upstream or downstream within the same river basin are rigorously assessed in order to avoid impacts on the outstanding universal value, OUV. We continue with paragraph.
Yes. First, yes, you have finished this paragraph.
Correct, I finished paragraph 4.
Yeah, so for the first 3 paragraphs, so dear committee members, we'll go through the text, the draft decision, paragraph by paragraph. So for the first 3 paragraphs, no revision. Approved? Approved. For paragraph 4, any objections? Paragraph 4. Approved. Then go ahead.
Paragraph 5 reads, recalling furthermore that the property was inscribed on the list of World Heritage in danger due to the dramatic decline in elephant population due to poaching and site clearance of about 1.8% of the 5.2 million hectare area of the property for the purpose of constructing the Julius Nyerere hydropower project, in brackets J and HPP, formerly the Rufiji hydropower project.
Paragraph 5, approved? Approved.
Paragraph 6.
Go ahead. Yeah, paragraph 6.
Paragraph 6 reads, recalling moreover, in the proposed amendment of Uganda, moreover was crossed over, but for the flow of the decision we need to have it here. Recalling moreover, the commitment made by the state party that led to the adoption of decision 36-7B.43 to not undertake any development activities in the property without the committee's approval, and further recalling the state party's declared intention to construct a dam in the property at the time of its inscription on the World Heritage List and assessment by IUCN technical review team that the proposed project would have no adverse impact on the property.
I see IUCN, I give the floor to you. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I think as this names IUCN, it is appropriate if you agree to just make comment. I think there are two comments to make here. I think as drafted, this is a factually incorrect statement. Firstly, the proposed project in this form did not exist in 1982, but also you've heard the opinion of IUCN recorded, and clearly our assessment is not that this would have no adverse impact on the property. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Now for paragraph 6, approved. Norway, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Norway would like to delete the text added from Uganda.
Ethiopia, yes, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. We want to see this paragraph maintained, and if IUCN or other delegations have issues, maybe we can agree on the facts. The facts as we know them is that when this site was inscribed, that is in 1982, the committee was informed that there would be development projects, and in particular, the construction of a dam. Now, whether they were not aware of the scale, of the nature, that could be debated. What cannot be debated as a matter of historical fact is that when this inscription was made in 1982, the committee and the experts were fully aware that there was a development project was planned, and in particular, the Selous Dam construction project was in the pipeline. So this would not be correct to say that there was no project envisaged. If the experts are not comfortable with the language can be changed. But this idea that there was no project planned is not correct, historically wrong. Thank you.
Uganda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Basically, during our review, we took note of a number of texts that actually were recorded by IUCN. I'm surprised that IUCN is denying the very text that they wrote. For example, I will quote. IUCN, some of the statements read in parts like, will result into clearance of a small portion of vegetation, and that will cause insignificant effects on the ecosystem. And the other statement, in parts, I quote, but this would affect a relatively small part of the reserve and should not be a matter of serious concern unless if the reservoir draws a large number of settlers. These are on record. And so that's the basis for us to have put this on record, that actually before this site was put on the list of heritage in danger, the state party had already notified ours, and IUCN had accepted that, yes, this was a small area to impact the entire Selous Game Reserve. So some of these things we need to get back to the records, and we should not deny the facts which are already in black and white. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. Egypt, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I will be very brief. I fully support the remarks made by the delegation of Uganda, and we believe that this paragraph should remain as it is without any proposal to deleting it. It's very important to make sure to keep this paragraph, and as I had indicated in my previous statement, why it's important to make the reference to constructing the dam and at the time of the inscription of the World Heritage List. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. South Africa, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairperson. I fully support what my brother from Ethiopia has said, as well as Egypt. IUCN is disputing those facts. Perhaps they could privilege us by telling us exactly in their understanding how was their report formulated. Are they denying completely that they never said that, or in there, according to them, they said something, and can they tell us exactly what they said in their report?
Nigeria, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just in line with the last submission, I want to totally support the submission of Ethiopia and Uganda, and to probably ask IUCN to check their record. Possibly it's an oversight from their side, but it has to be mentioned in the text that it was part of the initial document. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your comment. Australia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are thinking about proposing some amendments to the text that could perhaps resolve this tension, in that maybe the line could read after the assessment by the IUCN technical team. It could then say that the project proposed at the time would have, and I'm quoting here from
the IUCN assessment at the time, which said that it would only affect only a relatively small part of the reserve and should not be a matter of serious concern unless the reservoir draws in large numbers of settlers. And that's the direct quote.
Okay. Norway, please.
Thank you, Chair. We have a more recent decision made by the committee in Baku, and it's para 6 in 43.7a16 that reads, considers that the deforestation and other cumulative damage to such a large area within the property would likely lead to irreversible damage to its OUV and hence fulfill the conditions for deletion of the property from the World Heritage List. And I think it's important to bear in mind this decision when we are going through these amendments, and that's our concern. And advice from IUCN in 1982. Yeah, that's something, but a committee decision taken in Baku is important to remember. Thank you.
Yes. To this amendment, to Australian amendment, any objections? Norway, I wanted to clarify, you add one paragraph to the text?
No, it was just to remind the committee.
Remind, not for the text.
No.
Okay. So on the revised text of paragraph 6, any objections? No?
The rapporteur needs to look into it.
Yeah, the rapporteur, yeah.
Mr. Chair, if I may ask distinguished delegates of Australia to just dictate the text they wish to see in the decision, please. It would help.
It said that we'd say something like that the project proposed at the time would affect only a relatively small part of the reserve and should not be a matter of serious concern
Can we
unless the reservoir...
slow down.
Pardon?
Slow down.
They got it?
Of
should not be a matter of serious concern.
Wait.
Unless the reservoir draws in large numbers of settlers.
It's blocking it all.
And the document is the IUCN Technical Review
1992.
Identification number and name 199 Selous Game Reserve.
Yeah, Bahrain, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I've seen that IUCN have already requested it. Our question was to give them the floor to clarify this point, and perhaps they have a better institutional memory as the development since the inscription till now. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. IUCN, please.
Thank you, Chair. If the intention is to communicate the review at the time, then I understand the intention of the paragraph differently to how it was drafted. And I think to then be precise, it would be assessment by the IUCN technical review. At the time, it was not a team, it was one person who made reviews without going to the field. That the project that, because it's not the same project exactly, I guess it would work that the project proposed at that time would affect only, and it's not very, but it says only a relatively small part of the reserve. And should not be a matter of serious concern unless the reservoir draws in large numbers of settlers. Yes, that's now a factually correct statement, Mr. Chair. As you've understood, it's not IUCN's view in 2021. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now it's okay. Mr. Rapporteur, the text of paragraph 6 is okay now?
Shall we just read the amended part just for the clarity?
Yes.
I'm just adding the new part. I'm just reading the new part. And
Yes.
further recalling the state parties declared intention to construct a dam in the property at the time of its inscription on the World Heritage List and assessment by the IUCN Technical Review in brackets number 199 Selous Game Reserve, that the project proposed at that time would affect only a relatively small part of the reserve and should not be a matter of serious concern. Yes.
Excuse me, the text disappear. Text disappear. Yeah, okay. Now
Shall
it's
I
okay.
continue?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. In brackets number 199, Selous Game Reserve, that the project proposed at that time would affect only a relatively small part of the reserve and should not be a matter of serious concern unless the reservoir draws in large numbers of settlers. This is the final text, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any objections to this text? Paragraph 6. Approved? Approved. Rapporteur, go ahead.
Paragraph 7 reads, notes the existing Mikuju uranium mine project that was excised from Selous Game Reserve through boundary modification and the proposed Kidunda Dam, Quito 1 oil and gas exploration projects together with other planned oil exploration blocks outside the reserve, and also is added for the consistency, urges the state party to subject these projects to appropriate and relevant environmental and social safeguards.
Approved? Norway, please.
Thank you, Chair. Norway would like the wording in line with para 118 bis in the operational guideline when it comes to environmental impact assessments. It's in this suggestion, it stands environment and social safeguards. Maybe would like to ask the Secretariat to clarify if this is part of the normal procedures or standards in operational guidelines.
Dr. Russell? Mr. De Bonnet, you have the floor.
Could you repeat the question, please? Sorry. Could Norway repeat the question?
The question is about, it says in this new 7, it says and relevant environmental and social safeguards. Is that a term in line with the operational guidelines talking about environmental impact assessments?
I think this question should be answered by somebody who deals with the operational guidelines. But the best would be to refer directly perhaps to the relevant paragraph.
Uganda, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Basically what we want, our delegation wants to imply in this paragraph is to reiterate the need for the state party to assure that the social and environmental impact assessments are subjected to this project, including other areas which are outside the reserve. In fact, we need to have a social and Asia, something that like goes beyond the property in order for us to understand the cumulative impact of all these projects which are being developed. And so in this, therefore, if Norway thinks we have not captured all the information adequately or possibly we have used a statement that doesn't adequately cover what I have explained, then I give them the floor to put it better. I submit, Chair.
Oh, thank you. Now I can invite Dr. Rossler to give the floor to Dr. Rossler. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thanks to all the comments. So I think it would be best to refer to the relevant paragraphs of the operational guidelines. So you could add in line with paragraph 118 bis, of the operational guidelines, which clearly states that state parties shall ensure that environmental impact assessments, heritage impact assessments, and/or strategic environmental assessments be carried out as a prerequisite for development projects and activities that are planned for implementation within or around a World Heritage property. These assessments should serve to identify development alternatives as well as both potential positive and negative impacts on the outstanding universal value of the property and to recommend mitigation measures against degradation or other negative impacts on the cultural or natural heritage within the property or its wider setting. This will ensure the long-term safeguarding of the outstanding universal value and the strengthening of heritage resilience to disasters and climate change. So if you refer just to the paragraph 118 bis, I think that will do it. Thank you.
Norway, it's okay for you?
Thank you, that's fine.
Okay, approved? Dear colleagues, approved? Okay, approved. Ms. Rapporteur, go ahead. Paragraph 8.
Paragraph 8 reads, notes with concern that the state party has continued with some of the project activities that may impact the integrity and OUV of the property, and further urges the state party to put in place strong mitigation measures to manage such activities in accordance with the operational guidelines.
Approved? Approved. Paragraph 9.
The previous paragraph 9 is struck through and new paragraph 9 is proposed by Australia. Notes the property is one of the largest protected areas in Africa and is vital for protecting the endangered African elephant.
Approved? Approved. Go ahead.
New paragraph 10 reads, recommends that despite the potential impacts of the construction of the Julius Nyerere hydropower project, the state party takes note that the World Heritage Center and IUCN consider that important biodiversity could remain in the wider Selous Nyassa ecosystem, and the heritage status of this property could be re-evaluated with the option of developing a new World Heritage nomination.
Approved? Approved. Go ahead.
Okay. Shall we continue, Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead.
New paragraph 11 reads, requests the state party to invite, to be consistent with the other texts, Mr. Chair, we will have a minor modification, requests the state party to invite World Heritage Center / IUCN. Okay, request the state party to invite a joint World Heritage Center / IUCN reactive monitoring mission. To the property to verify the status of the property on the ground and suggest options for conserving the wider Selous Nyassa ecosystem.
Approved? Approved. Go ahead.
New paragraph 12 reads, further requests the state parties to submit to the World Heritage Center by 1 December 2022 an updated report on the state of conservation of the property for the examination by the World Heritage Committee at its 46th session in 2023 with a view to considering whether the property be delisted. Mr. Chair, so due to this pandemic situation, we actually are not going to have the years in the decision texts anymore. So at its 46th session, and also for the consistency, with a view to considering its deletion from the World Heritage List at its 46th session. We have a clarification in here, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I have a question. I have a question.
China, you have a floor. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question to the Australia delegation. I would like to know the specific reason why it's the 46th session Australia would like to propose.
Now, Australia, please.
The reason we suggested that was to give time for the reactive monitoring mission and then the subsequent report from state parties.
I give the floor to Dr. Rossler.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just also from my side, I need a clarification because the committee is reviewing at each of its ordinary sessions all the state of conservation of sites on the danger list. So it means that at the 45th session, there would be a report. So on which grounds is this report based? So that's also a question I would have then to Australia with this amendment. Thank you.
Australia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I think perhaps this is something that we would take guidance from Uganda and maybe from the Secretariat as to how we might navigate this. Our intention was simply to provide enough time to do the work, not to try to avoid a report at the 45th session. So I am in the hands of the very capable Dr. Rossler. Thank you.
Ethiopia, please.
Sorry, thank you, Chair. No, I think the concerns of the director are valid. But having said that, you know, we could ask for a progress report at the next sessions, and then, of course, the final one will be at the 46th session. So there should not be any problem with that. There would be a report at the next session. For example, we've asked that aid party by December 1st submits an updated report, and then thereafter we're expecting a mission. So we can ask for progress reports. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Egypt, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, looking at the proposed paragraph, I think we should stop after the 46th session, and we have to delete the last sentence of this paragraph. The fact of making a reference to a view to considering the deletion, I think this is a pre-jumping to the examination by the 46th session. And therefore, I think that we should stop after the 46th session and to let the 46th session to examine and to take the necessary decision. I thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Yeah, Dr. Rosala, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I have carefully listened to the statement of Ethiopia. So the paragraph 190 clearly says the annual review of state of conservation. So with the permission of the delegate of Ethiopia, so we could say further request the state party to submit a progress report by 1st February 22. Etc. So I leave this to the rapporteur so that it's aligned with the operational guidelines. Thank you.
So is it okay with the members, the committee members, this proposal? Is it okay? Yeah. Oman, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chairman. I have the same observation as His Excellency the Ambassador of Egypt. I think we should stop at the 46th session without putting a condition in order to delete the site. So I think the same observation of Egypt. Thank you.
Thank you. Ethiopia, you have the floor.
Thank you. Two things. Firstly, we fully agree with what the director said, that is perfectly fine with us. But more importantly, we forgot to mention, yes, the second part of the sentence prejudges the outcome of the report and the visit. And by the way, we have, I think, a decision in our last meeting in Baku. Maybe the rapporteur can remind us, where we don't prejudge the outcome of visits and reports. So that part, to be consistent with our previous practice, the last part should be deleted as proposed by Egypt and supported by Oman. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Uganda, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to associate our views with those of Egypt and Oman. I think if we put with a view of deletion, that would be biasing the assessment team. And so I think we need to leave the assessment team to be very independent and bring its views without being biased. And secondly, I think I want to support also the statement of the director of the World Heritage Center. I think it's also in order. I submit, Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Rapporteur, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to formulate this paragraph 12, we say further requests the state party to submit to the World Heritage Center by 1 February 2022 a progress report and by 1 December 2022, an updated report on the state of conservation of the property for examination by the World Heritage Committee at its 46th session. And in response to the question of distinguished delegation of Ethiopia, the continuation text is taken from a previous decision, so this is a text that was used before, just to clarify, that continues with a view to considering its deletion from the World Heritage List at its 46th session. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. China, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My delegation supports the amendment raised by Egypt and seconded by Oman, Ethiopia, Uganda. we also want to delete the final part of the sentence. Thank you.
Thank you. Norway, please.
Thank you, Chair. Norway would like to keep some remains of previous decisions. So Norway would like to keep the last part of para 12.
Australia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was about to speak to say that if the consensus was around deleting that paragraph, then Australia would not object, but to point out that it was part of the original text. So in the interest of reaching a consensus, we will not object to its removal, because we also agree it is problematic to prejudge or assume to prejudge an outcome of a future committee decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Ethiopia, please.
Thank you very much. We join Egypt, again, Oman, Uganda, China, and Australia. Most countries are for removing the last part because it's not fair and it prejudges. So we urge for you to reach consensus, because for us, it's a fundamental issue that this part be removed, and let the mission and the reports guide us on whether or not there will be deletion or not. Thank you.
Thank you. Hungary, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hungary also agrees with Egypt, Oman, Ethiopia, Uganda, China to delete the last part. Thank you.
Thank you. Saudi Arabia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to join Egypt, Oman, Ethiopia, Uganda, China, Australia, and Hungary with the proposal to delete the last part, since it's considered to be a prejudgment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. South Africa.
Indeed, Chairperson, I really want to join all other colleagues, Egypt, Oman, Ethiopia, Uganda, China, Australia, Saudi Arabia, to request that this part be deleted. Thanks.
Thank you. Nigeria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nigeria want to join Egypt, Oman, Ethiopia, Uganda, China, Australia, and Saudi Arabia, as well as South Africa, to take away the last part of that section, since it will look preemptive to us. Thank you.
Thank you. Spain, please.
Gracias, señor presidente. Tan solo era para sumarnos a la propuesta que había hecho Noruega, y con ello aportamos algo útil. Solamente era eso. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. South Africa, please.
No, sorry, Chair, it was an earlier hand.
Okay. Bosnia, please. Bosnia.
Oui, je vous entends. Merci. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous sommes d'accord avec la majorité de nos collègues, à savoir de biffer la partie concernant, c'est le point 13.
Okay, thank you. Guatemala, please.
De maintenir la chose. Voilà, merci.
Oh, okay, thank you. Guatemala, please.
Thank you, Chair. Gracias, Presidente. Solamente para comentar que estamos de acuerdo con lo sugerido posteriormente por Australia y sobre el consenso sobre lo que dijo Etiopía, Egipto y los demás países en quitar el último párrafo, debido a que si leemos la decisión completa implica, y hay ciertas situaciones que realmente describen la situación sin afectar y sin predeterminar lo que el informe o lo que se está solicitando al Estado parte tenga que decir. Así es que estamos de acuerdo con Australia y los demás. Gracias.
Thank you. Thailand, please. Thailand, please.
And we'd like to support the amendment proposed by Egypt to delete the last part
of that paragraph because we believe that we should not prejudge what will be decided at the 46th session of the World Heritage Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. I wanted to know, Norway, do you like to join the consensus?
Thank you. We will join.
Thank you. Paragraph 12, approved. Go ahead.
And last paragraph 13 reads, decides to retain Selous Game Reserve, United Republic of Tanzania, on the list of World Heritage in danger. These are all the amendments, Mr. Chair.
Approved? Approved. So, dear colleagues, now we have went through, sorry, St. Kitts and Nevis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to add my voice of support for all the previous endorsements and to record St. Kitts and Nevis's appreciation of the compromises reached. Thank you.
Thank you. So, dear colleagues, now we have went through all the text. If there are no other comments, I now declare the draft decision 51,7A.51 adopted as amended. Thank you very much. I would, okay, yeah. I would now like to ask whether any observer delegation would like to express themselves about this property. Oh, we have Uganda first. Uganda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. The delegation of Uganda would like to thank members of the committee for discussing Selous Game Reserve objectively. Given the current wave of rapid biodiversity loss and climate change, it would have been a grave mistake on the part of the committee to surrender such a magnificent habitat with threatened, endangered, and rare species to deletion. This committee is mandated to protect the cultural and natural heritage, and anything that is not in line with that puts the mandate of this committee at stake. We congratulate the United Republic of Tanzania on this achievement and advise on a dialogue for evaluation of the remaining area for onward protection of the critically threatened biodiversity. I thank you, Chair.
Ethiopia, please.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I want to thank all delegations who participated constructively in having what we feel is a very balanced and a fair decision. We want to thank the government of Tanzania for positively engaging on this matter. The government is, of course, well aware, I think, of the challenges ahead, but this is a challenge that can only be met if it's supported by us as the committee and by the wider international community. Again, the balance between development and heritage protection should be struck. There is no opposition between the two in our minds. In actual fact, development is a condition for heritage preservation and protection. We are very happy to see that this magnificent site remains on a World Heritage List, and now we should, of course, all work together in a cooperative manner to ensure that it is removed from the list. And if you allow, Chair, I think the government of Tanzania should also be given the opportunity to words. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Guatemala, please.
Gracias, presidente. Solamente queremos agradecer el profundo trabajo y el buen análisis de los órganos evaluadores y del Centro de Patrimonio Mundial, y también felicitar a Tanzania en este proceso y en este paso, y felicitarnos a todos por el debate saludable, dinámico, comprometido y con pasión, según pudimos ver, sobre este tema, sobre este parque y sobre este tema en especial. Y quisiera reiterar la necesidad de tener justamente ese mismo diálogo y esa misma conversación activa sobre el desarrollo y sobre cómo mantener el patrimonio mundial de la humanidad, de la cual todos hemos ratificado y somos parte de la convención, y compaginarlo con el desarrollo y con los objetivos de desarrollo sostenible. Nos alegramos sobre esta gestión, agradecemos muchísimo a los órganos evaluadores sobre su capacidad analítica y sobre su capacidad estrictamente científica, y valoramos eso y nos recalcamos en eso, y a la comunidad internacional sobre el valoroso y el valioso diálogo que llevamos a cabo. Creo que el multilateralismo debe funcionar, y es algo que está en riesgo, no solamente como comentaba el embajador, el delegado honorable de Etiopía, estamos en situaciones ante riesgo, pero el multilateralismo en sí, y creo que esta convención es un buen ejemplo de ello. Muchas gracias, presidente.
Thank you for your comment. Now I give the floor to Tanzania for 2 minutes intervention.
Thank you very much, Chair. On behalf of the Tanzanian delegation, I wish to take this opportunity to thank you personally for chairing this session professionally. And I would also like to thank all members for their constructive views that have made Tanzania to remain in the list of World Heritage Sites endangered. It is true that the decision was based on facts that were not clear, but members of the committee observed that there are anomalies which need to be rectified. And on our side, we are ready to collaborate, make sure that all facts are known clearly. And if there is any decision to be taken, it is to be an objective decision, not a decision based on speculations. So I assure you that we will cooperate, and I urge all members to continue supporting Tanzania, as we are highly committed to ensure that Selous is effectively managed and that there are no negative impacts that will have long-term effects on the sustainability of the ecosystem. Thank you very much, Chair, and I wish you all the best.
Okay, thank you for your intervention. Now I give the floor to Environmental Investigation Agency for 2 minutes intervention.
Thank you, Chair, for giving us the floor. This intervention is made on behalf of the Environmental Investigation Agency and the Rivers Without Boundaries Coalition. We regret this committee's decision not to delist the Selous Game Reserve as per the draft decision. We are disappointed by the move to retain the property on the list of World Heritage in danger. The refugee hydropower project has been repeatedly flagged by UNESCO and IUCN as flouting Tanzania's commitments under the convention. This committee has explicitly requested that the project construction not be carried out. The Tanzanian government has instead chosen a path of unilateral action that has been detrimental to the outstanding universal value of the Selous. For many years, even prior to the pandemic, the state failed to invite a monitoring mission to the site. The decision to not delist the Selous absolves the state party of its responsibilities in instigating an unsustainable project in the middle of our shared heritage. Further, we are concerned that today's decision waters down the purposes and integrity of the UNESCO Convention. The state party has continued to undertake activities in the Selous Game Reserve that are contrary to this committee's own recommendations. Information published by the state party presents the dam over halfway complete. Significant deforestation in key habitats and the diversion of the Rufiji River, the central artery of the property, have taken place. The state party has publicly announced its intention to start filling the reservoir in November 2021.
The reasons for the site being designated as World Heritage have been systematically destroyed, extensively due to the construction instigated by the state party. We do not dispute the state party's right to develop energy. However, this committee has unequivocally opposed the development of large dams inside UNESCO sites, and so a natural consequence of the state party's actions should be delisting. Today's meeting was unfortunately a missed opportunity for the committee to send a clear and unambiguous message that the willful destruction of ecologically important UNESCO sites is unacceptable under the Convention. We would also draw attention to the involvement of state-owned companies and banks of several states parties in the project, and urge the committee going forward to remind parties of their commitments to not threaten the world heritage of other state parties.
Remind the time,
Yes, I've got 20 seconds left, is that okay? Thank you. Decisions taken today on the Selous Game Reserve are instrumental in determining the long-term protection of our shared heritage, but also the future of the UNESCO Convention. We are deeply disappointed that a more robust outcome was not agreed to promote the protection of our shared heritage, our environment, and the integrity of the Convention. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Dear colleagues, before we conclude today's session, I'd like to give the floor to Dr. Rosler to make some announcement concerning the vote scheduled on 21st July. Dr. Rosler, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I would like to just remind the committee members that the secret vote on item 7A 34, that is Liverpool, scheduled on 21st July, that is Wednesday, will start at 9 a.m. in room 5 at Fontenoy, at the Fontenoy building of UNESCO, according to the timetable, which is shown now on the screen. And you will also receive this timetable from the Secretariat tonight. The voting papers will be distributed in the room itself. Please also note that we have 2 tellers, and I think there was a mistake in the name of the teller from South Africa. This will be Mr. Moses Falane, and the Hungarian representative is Mr. Szabolcs Nemes. There's also an announcement we would like to make with the chairperson, because we said this at the press conference yesterday. For all of you, there is a World Heritage issue out in Chinese, English, French, and Spanish, because you are not with us here in Fuzhou, so you can look at the World Heritage sites in China. Thank you very much. And I think Mrs. Hosagraha has announcements of the site events also. Thank you.
Yes, please. Thank you. Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. I wanted to announce about the side event on 21st of July. The young managers and local actors around World Heritage, 6 dialogues with local communities. This will be held at 21:45 to 23:30 Beijing time, or 15:45 to 17:30 hours Paris time. This is organized by the permanent delegation of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to UNESCO. All information on side events, date, time, and online access are available on the webpage, the session webpage. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you. Dear colleagues, Oman, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, the Chair. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to start by congratulating you all on our Muslim world for the occasion of Eid al-Adha. Today and tomorrow are sacramental days for us, and I wish you all Eid Mubarak. I would like also to thank the committee for accepting Oman and Egypt's proposal to hold the meeting for tomorrow, the 20th. This is very much appreciated by us as Muslims. Wishing you all the best for the day. Thank you.
Thank you. Dear friends, we are closing today's meeting almost on time. In general, we are on track according to our program. Thank you for your diligent efforts and efficiency. I also would like to take this opportunity to wish our Muslim friends Eid al-Adha. Dear colleagues, see you the day after tomorrow at 11:30 Paris time. And for Bureau members, we will meet at 11 a.m. Thank you.